This City Council meeting of April 7th, 2026 is called to order at 6:30 p.m. We will begin with a moment for prayer or reflection. The City of Medicine Hat acknowledges that we live and work on treaty territory. The city pays respect to all Indigenous peoples and honors their past, present, and future. We recognize and respect their cultural heritages and relationships to the land. First up, item 5, regular City Council minutes of March 16, 2026. Any objections, errors, omissions? Seeing none, Council adopts the minutes of the March 16th, 2026 regular council meeting for the corporate record. Adoption of the agenda. Do we have any additions to the agenda? All right. The agenda is adopted as presented for the corporate record. Councillor announcements. Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to briefly comment on the fact that someone very well known to us in Southern Alberta, Corb Lund, was in Medicine Hat over the weekend, on Sunday to be specific, because that was one of the few days when he wasn't touring and was available to come and for the rally, which the Water Not Coal Coalition sponsored here in Medicine Hat in the parking lot of the old arena. So there was a nice crowd out there at noon on Easter Sunday. He sang one song for us. I was hoping we'd get at least two, but we got one. It was a good one. I want to commend both to Council's future consideration and to the public this particular effort to protect the watershed, and our drinking water here in Medicine Hat is directly impacted by the proposal for coal mining on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains. I note that Lethbridge City Council has passed a resolution opposing the expansion or reinvigorment of coal mining in this region, and so I will be attempting to bring something like that forward at a point in the future, but I just wanted to make comment on the rally and the fact that there was a goodly number of people there, and many of them were asking me, as a city councillor who was present, why we haven't taken a position to protect the water, the drinking water of people in Medicine Hat.
Councillor Reinish.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Through the chair, any birders here? Any bird watchers? Councillor Cox and myself went to the Grasslands Naturalist annual general meeting, and they were passing out this southeastern Alberta bird checklist. And the Society of Grasslands Naturalists put all the work into it. It's a fairly comprehensive bird checklist. So anybody who is a bird watcher out there who wants this one, because I won't be using it, I'm not much of a bird watcher. If anybody wants it, they can have this copy of it. But congratulations to the Society of Grasslands Naturalists. I also have a couple of important announcements to make. A couple of our councillors are celebrating birthdays this week. So Yusuf will be 87. Councillor Mohammed will be 87 on Sunday, and Councillor Clugston, I think it is. Yes, Councillor Clugston will be 94 on Wednesday. So happy birthday to those two. And then one final announcement that just came in, and I think this is an important one with the Tigers playing as well as they're playing. Willie Desjardins has been named an Eastern Conference finalist for WHL Coach of the Year. So congratulations to Willie Desjardins from Council, and happy birthday, Yusuf and Ted.
Thank you very much. Also just wanted to note that a couple weeks ago, Councillor Mohammed and I had an opportunity to attend some events and meetings in Ottawa. We had the opportunity to represent Medicine Hat with the Department of National Defence, the Ministry of Transportation, and the Alberta Senior Representative to Ottawa and Agent General. We felt the trip was successful, and we built relationships with key federal partners that we hope to work with and advance Alberta's interests with, or Medicine Hat specifically interests with in the future. So happy to report that that trip was a success. Any other councillor announcements? Okay, consent agenda. Does anyone want to pull any of the items from the consent agenda for discussion? Do any of the chairs or acting chairs want to highlight anything from their agendas or the items in this consent agenda? Councillor Cox?
I'm just trying to make sure I understand. The consent agenda, this is including the Community Vibrancy Grants?
No,
No, that's coming up separately.
that's right.
Okay, yeah.
It is in the package, but it's also.
But it's also got its own place on the
Yes.
agenda. Thank you. I'll wait.
Thank you. Can I have a motion, please? I want a motion that council adopts the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed. We will vote on the adoption of the consent agenda items. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes. All right. 9.1, Urban Hens. This is sponsored by Development and Infrastructure Committee. Councillor Dan Reinish was the acting chair when it came through, so I will ask him to give a brief introduction and make a motion to get the item on the table.
Thank you, Your Honor. Through the chair, the recommended motion by administration differs from the resolution of previous council and staff, and they have provided options for council's consideration to directly address the council decision. Development and Infrastructure Committee has reviewed the proposed motion for Urban Hens with administration and committee and suggests council consider the motion as recommended with the stipulation that Urban Hens be returned to council before the end of Q2 as a 2-year pilot project. Director Popoff, Superintendent Champagne, Manager Sissons, and Manager Wetter of Parks will provide a presentation and respond to council questions.
Okay, thank you. Just as a note, Councillor Reinish, I would be requesting that the motion that is recommended should be to prepare a bylaw to permit Urban Hens in Medicine Hat and then the pilot project period, because Urban Hens are already regulated in Medicine Hat. We're wanting a bylaw to permit them.
Okay.
All right. Superintendent Champagne, go ahead.
Oh, well, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So yes, tonight I'll be presenting an overview of some of the preliminary work that we've conducted on the topic of urban hens. So what I'll do is provide a little bit of historical context, the direction that was provided by our previous council, a summary of the research that we've conducted to date, and some proposed next steps if council would wish to continue exploring this topic. So urban hens aren't new in Medicine Hat. The city first explored the idea in 2014 and 2015 when research was conducted and a proposed pilot bylaw was brought forward. So that bylaw was defeated in April of 2015. The topic resurfaced again in September of 2022 when another motion directing staff to investigate options for an urban hen program was also defeated at that time. And then most recently again in September of 2025, a presentation was made to our city council by an advocate for urban hens. So following that, our council passed a motion directing our administration to bring back amendments to relevant bylaws to permit urban hens. And so here we are today. So as it stands, chickens are classified as livestock under the Land Use Bylaw, the Responsible Animal Ownership Bylaw, as well as the Parks Bylaw. So the Land Use Bylaw prohibits the keeping of livestock in residential districts unless it's allowed by any other bylaw. The Responsible Animal Ownership Bylaw also prohibits livestock unless it's allowed under the Land Use Bylaw, and the Parks Bylaw simply doesn't allow livestock in any of our city parks. I don't think that's something that we're trying to address here. I've simply included this here as information. So currently, as it stands, there's no mechanism in place that would permit urban hens within an urban area within our municipal boundary. So what do other municipalities in Alberta do? So this slide here shows at a glance which municipalities in Alberta allow and which prohibit the keeping of urban hens. There are some small differences in execution amongst those that do allow hens, but there are a lot more similarities than there are differences, and I will get into those on the following slides. So first, among the Alberta municipalities that do allow urban hens, a key finding is that none of them actually regulate hens through their land use bylaw. So land use bylaws regulate what uses are allowed, where they're allowed. An urban hen program requires a lot more oversight on how hens are kept, for example. So we're talking about things like care standards, training, inspections, issuing and revoking licenses, and enforcement tools. So because these are a lot more operational matters, all Alberta municipalities either use a responsible animal ownership bylaw, of which we have. So what they do is treat hens in the same way that we treat dogs and cats, but they may have some specific regulations to the keeping of hens. Or a separate dedicated urban hen bylaw to administer their programs. So again, while each municipality that does allow urban hens will structure their program a little differently, there's a lot of significant consistency throughout the province. So all require a license, with most requiring an annual renewal. This ensures continued compliance, and it allows enforcement officers to verify compliance on an ongoing basis. The flock size limits range between 2 and 6 hens, with most allowing around 4 hens. None allow just a single bird because chickens are a highly social flock animal, so you always have to have at least 2, so 2 or more. Provincial registration is mandated by the province because poultry traceability is central to disease control. So we're talking about things like avian flu, for example, which we experience most years and in great numbers in this year in particular. Training is universally required so that we can teach things on improper coop construction, poor hygiene, inadequate ventilation, how those things can create odors, pests, and some welfare issues for the animals themselves. We want to make sure they're healthy. Neighbor notification is also a pretty consistent requirement, recognizing that impacts can extend beyond the property line. Just as a note, I've included in my presentation here consent as well. Only in Lamont do they actually require consent, but generally across the board, neighbor notification is something that is a prerequisite. So at the end of the day, we're kind of talking about two sides of the same coin here. We just want to notify the neighbors so that they're aware of what's going on, have some good neighbor relations, just to start the process off well if someone chooses to embark down this avenue. Most municipalities regulate the coop itself and site standards like the size of the coop and where it's located within the property. And enforcement is universally undertaken by the respective bylaw enforcement departments of each municipality. So the results of this research demonstrate how urban hen programs are generally administered, but it also underscores the scale and complexity of adopting an urban hen program. So we would have multiple city departments participating, both in creating the program, administering it, and holding enforcement responsibilities. So I've outlined some of those here. So our Planning and Development Services Department would be responsible for coordinating cross-department work, and they would prepare reports. Our bylaw enforcement team would be responsible for managing inspections, verifying compliance, responding to complaints, and they're generally responsible for enforcement. The Parks and Recreation Department may need to handle surrendered or abandoned hens, as they are the department responsible for administering our animal pound services. Our Customer Service Department would be responsible for application intake, application review, fee processing, annual renewal processing, answering general miscellaneous inquiries. Our Corporate Communications Department would design and deliver a public engagement process in partnership with relevant city departments. Our city solicitor would draft or would provide assistance in drafting a new urban hen bylaw or provided recommended amendments to the responsible animal ownership bylaw, and our finance team would help assess any staffing and resourcing implications.
I have a question for you. Previous slide, provincial licensing is mandatory. What is their role? Like, what does that look like and how is it enforced? And is this license management that we're doing in addition to that?
Through the chair, yes, to answer your question, in short, this would be in addition to the provincial requirements. So they do provide a guideline to municipalities that are looking into adopting an urban hen program, and they provide some guidelines that kind of outline some of the things that I described in my previous slides, all the things like neighbor notification, the permitting process, but this would be the license that they would receive from the city, allowing them to raise urban hens, would be in addition to the provincial registration.
And so what is the registration provincially? What does that trigger? Are they also involved in enforcement?
So through the chair, no, so their role within this would just be to trace where hens are kept, the size of the flock, where they're located, how they're being kept. In case of an outbreak, then they would be responsible for that portion. Okay, so I want to talk a little briefly about public engagement. So this is a detail that differentiates some of the options that we've presented or will be presenting shortly here. I won't spend much time on this slide, since my understanding is there will actually be a presentation today from our public participation specialist discussing this very topic. Planning and Development Services engages the public a lot in our day-to-day work. We're coming up on the last leg of our land use bylaw refresh project, and throughout that process, we've engaged the public a lot. And what we've heard from the public is resoundingly that the public wants to be involved in any matters that affect the character of their neighborhood. This is a topic that can be particularly polarizing. They especially want to participate in anything that might be controversial or polarizing and share their voice. So we have not had an opportunity at this time to engage the public on this topic, but this is something that would take place under the recommended motion that I'll be sharing on the following slide. So I want to be clear that this is not a recommendation to adopt an urban hen program. This has just been prepared after a motion was made by our city council directing staff to prepare this. The recommendation is simply that if city council wishes to continue exploring an urban hen program, then the best practice would be to develop a comprehensive program concurrently with a public engagement process. So there's a few things that would happen concurrently under this option. We would prepare a comprehensive bylaw to regulate urban hens. We would base that on identified best practices from other municipalities, as well as feedback from the community through a public engagement process. We would prepare a report including anticipated costs and staff resources for implementing such a program, and that the findings and the results of this research would then be presented to City Council for adoption in Q2 of 2026. For alternative option 1, this would allow urban hens, by completing a review of the attached amendments to the Responsible Animal Ownership Bylaw. The difference with the previous option is that no public or stakeholder engagement has yet taken place, and the bylaw amendment will be expedited for City Council review and adoption. So this is not an amendment that would be able to be adopted today. This option would be further finalized and then brought back for adoption. Next, alternative option 2. This option here is being presented to demonstrate what was discussed at the presentation that was conducted in September of last year to Council. We've included it here as an opportunity to consider and discuss what the implications might be. So this is what may be described as the deregulated option. The suggestion made was simply to amend our definition of livestock to no longer include the term chicken. So the term chicken would be removed, and then amended version would allow for the raising of hens. So under this option, urban hens are permitted by omission. There are no administrative implications or enforcement mechanisms to implement. There's no internal or external engagement that takes place under this option. And now finally on to option 3. The option here is that Council rescind the motion that administration bring back amendments to necessary bylaws to permit urban hens in Medicine Hat. So under this option, administration would cease research, engagement planning, and development of regulatory or program frameworks. Existing bylaws would remain unchanged, and no additional resources would be allocated to this initiative. So in closing, we've completed preliminary research, and the information gathered gives us a clear idea of how urban hen programs function throughout the province. We've identified who would participate internally on this initiative and in what capacity. And if you wish to continue exploring this topic, multiple options have been identified for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. So the draft amending bylaw that you've included, 4884-206, is neither deregulated nor the full bylaw that you were talking about. So where does that come in?
So bylaw, through the chair, thank you. Bylaw 4884-2026 would be an amendment to the Responsible Animal Ownership Bylaw. So this is an example of how we can amend the Responsible Animal Ownership Bylaw to allow the raising of urban hens.
But that, I didn't see that as, so there was a deregulated option, option 2. That's different than this.
That's correct. So through the chair, alternative option 1 would be to amend the responsible animal ownership bylaw, like is described in bylaw 4884-2026.
So the option 2 bylaw is not included? Because that would have to be a land use bylaw amendment?
Through the chair, that is correct. So this would be an amendment that is made to the land use bylaw, correct? And under this option, it's simply allowed by omission.
Okay, any questions? Go ahead.
Does the city currently allow pigeons in backyards?
Oh, I lost my slide here. So thank you very much for the question. So through the chair, the land use bylaw prohibits the raising of livestock within a residential neighborhood. And livestock is described as any, one of the subpoints is any animal of the avian species. There it is. So the current definition, livestock, which is prohibited within a residential district, includes any animal of the avian species. So including a chicken, turkey, duck, goose, or pheasant.
Okay, but pigeon is not written there, but the avian species supersedes the specific pigeon. Okay, cool.
A pigeon is an animal of the avian species. I read it in that way.
Councillor Varga, and just to be clear, we're doing questions. There's no motion on the table yet.
No, I know, and that's what I'm just wondering. We have to make a motion on one of the options, I take it?
Yep, I'm just asking if there's any questions for the presenter before we get into motion and debate.
I guess just the question I have is that does staff have enough time to do all this work that's being presented here tonight? That's a lot of work that has to go into the raising of hens and all the work the city staff has to do. So my other question is, how much is the fee going to be for having a permit to do that? Have they come up with that yet, or is that in future consideration?
There is in the bylaw, a number, I can pull it for you. $50 yearly fee, and then there's a bunch of minimum and specified penalties for various offenses.
I guess I go back to my first question. Does staff have enough time to look after this thing?
Well, it depends which option we choose. There's a deregulated option. It seems pretty cheap. Go ahead.
So through the chair, staff will implement whatever council passes and will allocate resources as needed.
Councillor Cox?
But I did have some questions. Okay.
So I've got two questions. I've forgotten the first one, so I'll ask the second one, and hopefully the first one will come back to mind. The second one, just following up on the point made by, or the question asked by Councillor Pfaff regarding pigeons. My understanding is pigeons are permitted in the city of Medicine Hat. Are you saying they're prohibited as an avian species?
So thank you for the question. Through the chair, what I'm saying is livestock is prohibited within a residential district, and animals of the avian species are included within the definition of livestock.
So how come we have pigeon roosts in Medicine Hat? I thought they were permitted. Are you saying they're not permitted, but we turn a blind eye?
I'm saying that, thank you for the question. I'm saying that this is the definition of livestock within the land use bylaw, which is prohibited within a residential district.
So that would also include parrots, budgies.
Canaries?
So through the chair, I think there's a difference between raising an animal like a parrot as a pet versus having urban hens as a basically livestock that's producing food for consumption. So
What's
that's
the-
one of the main differences.
So if you just have a chick and they don't produce you any food and you like pet them and stuff and they crawl up on super cute, crawl up on your shoulder, would that be a pet?
So through the chair, the land use bylaw does not get into those levels of details regarding every type of animal. Any other restrictions on animal would be underneath the responsible animal ownership bylaw. So currently, basically, my understanding, it regulates primarily dogs and cats. But there's various different types. There's snakes, there's lizards, there's parrots, there's all sorts of things.
Bunnies. Okay, so the distinction is not what specifically is listed, it's whether or not you're keeping it for the purpose of consuming it or something it produces.
So through the chair, to be very honest, I prepared a presentation on urban chickens. I'm not very familiar about, I'm very certain there are people that have pigeons within the city as well as budgies and other kinds of birds. All I can state is that chickens are explicitly prohibited in our land use bylaw.
Councillor Young.
Thank you. And obviously, it's good conversation, but a pigeon isn't a chicken. Pigeons aren't laying eggs and feeding you. So, like, I understand, but we're talking about fundamentally different things. So what I feel right now is I feel like there's a lack of information here, but I don't know how much this is going to cost. I don't know. Which is obviously the biggest thing. I don't know the other resources. Like in our briefing note, there was more resources, but I still think there's a lot of missing information here. But at the end of the day, this has to be managed by bylaw. And if we go with an option of regulating this, we have an option to deregulate this, which is like, yeah, let people do what they want. Hey, you want chickens, you want whatever, go for it. We don't care. But if we're going to regulate this, which I think the vast, vast majority of our population would want us to do, we need someone who's going to regulate this. That's going to be the city, and that's also going to be bylaw. Is that correct? Bylaw officers are going to have to spend time going and checking on chickens and making sure, following up with complaints, that sort of thing. Is that correct?
That's correct, through
Okay.
the chair. I'd also like to just state that because we're talking we've been speaking about this deregulated option. I want to be clear as well, no one else does that. There's no other municipality in Alberta that just allows urban hens by omission, because then there are no regulations. So I mentioned earlier, for example, you can't in any Alberta municipality keep a single chicken because they're highly social flock animal. It's cruel to keep only a single chicken. So if you don't regulate in any way, there's no mechanism in place to prevent someone from doing that or from keeping as many hens as they possibly would want. So there are implications beyond what might appear as just simply deregulating. No other Alberta municipality does that. But yes, to answer the question, bylaw enforcement officers would be responsible for conducting inspections or responding to complaints, just in the same way as they would with regards to a complaint about a dog or another animal.
Councillor Hellman, and should we just get the motion on are you still questioned? Yeah, Councillor Hellman?
Thank you, through the chair, Superintendent Champagne. I was just wondering about one of your slides there, Parks and Recreation was responsible for potential animal intake. That was one of my concerns with this program or potential program would be what happens to hens that people don't want anymore. I know the SPCA has said they won't take them. Obviously, they can't just be released into the wild. So what does the cost on that look like? And who's responsible for bearing that cost?
Thank you for the question, through the chair. Parks does manage animal pound services as of about a year ago, so that falls under the Parks manager, which is myself. We haven't figured out an exact cost if we did take in a hen. We do obviously have some concerns that if a hen did come within our facility of, you know, possible avian flu, things like that, which we are addressing. I have spoken to some other municipalities. Most other municipalities, their pound services does take animals in when it comes to birds, but it's not a lot. The city of Edmonton has about 20 birds a year. Calgary is around 10, so we're not dealing with a whole lot, but we would put plans in place. We would work with, if we were directed on possibly maybe an outdoor coop, maybe there's some ventilation options within our facility when those things happen. Most municipalities don't keep them any longer than the 72 hours. They've said to me they've never had one that's been kind of reclaimed. At that point, after that 72 hours, they kind of have arrangements with hobby farms or other areas. We would investigate possibly having a third party that could possibly take, so let's say bylaw has removed a hen, or if, let's say, bylaws, you know, a hen's running down, you know, Main Street here in front of City Hall, that then we'd have an option of where it could go at that point, but we haven't got all those details in place yet.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you, Your Worship. Sorry, I was flying through some stuff here. Just to comment, perhaps to Councillor Young's point, the recommended motion you'll find in your agenda, and I think it may be tweaked slightly, but it's basically what we're doing tonight, or what's proposed that we do tonight, is that we prepare a bylaw for future consideration, and B, that we prepare a report including anticipated costs. So that's where the costs of enforcement and what that would entail, and the costs of issuing the permits and regulating this would come into being. The alternate options that are not recommended, it's a different way of putting it, alternate. Anyway, they include just deregulating them, saying, yep, chickens are no longer considered livestock. And just further to that point, and trying to get my head around pigeons and how come we seem to have pigeons, but they're not considered livestock because livestock would prohibit them from being kept in the city of Medicine Hat. So I don't know whether they are a deregulated option or whether we've just, I mean, I don't see where calling them pets, I mean, you could call a pony a pet, but that wouldn't allow you to keep it in the city of Medicine Hat the way you could keep a parrot or a boa constrictor or a whatever. So I'm a little confused on that, but I don't have the definition of livestock right before me at this point.
Sorry. I think at this point, there's the deregulated option, but there's also a regulated option in the attached bylaw is regulated as the regulated option. So I think we need to get a motion on the table.
Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. So the motion is, I move that council direct administration to A, prepare a bylaw to permit urban hens in Medicine Hat based on identified best practices and community feedback for a 2-year pilot. Prepare a report indicating anticipated costs and staff resources for implementation. And C, present the bylaw and report to council in Q2 2026 for consideration as recommended by administrative committee. That is the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor Cox seconded. Any debate? I don't see any speakers. Oh, Councillor Hellman.
Thank you, through the chair. I was just going to ask if it's a 2-year pilot project, is there a limit on number of households that will be able to participate in the pilot?
I think that would depend on what the bylaw says, we could certainly amend the motion to specify a limitation on how many households get to participate, if you want. Yeah, so. And the bylaw will be coming through Public Services. So if there are any concerns with the bylaw at that time, you would certainly have an opportunity to comment on it. Oh, is it Public Services or DNI that'll be bringing this forward? Okay, DNI, my apologies. Councillor Young.
I do think it's important we debate this a little bit. It seems like a silly thing, but I think it is, it's important. I remember sitting up there where my friend Adam's sitting right now in September, listening to this argument and going, this is simple. Let people want chickens, let them have chickens. Like, who gives a crap? Like, I really thought it was a cut and dry thing. Now that I'm in here, and I even had someone campaigning, hey, are you support chickens? Yep, I think that's a good idea. Now that I've had some time in here, I think we have to understand that decisions aren't made in a vacuum. The reality is this is not a huge, it's not going to be a huge cost, but there is a cost to this program. So the reality is there's resources. So our D&I department, our superintendent of planning and their team has probably, just a rough guesstimate, has probably spent 100 hours working on this back and forth to council, back and forth to council. So they've spent 100 hours. Now we're going to have to train people. We're going to have to train bylaw. Bylaw is going to have to manage this. There is a significant cost to this. We're also having another conversation in, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours about tax pressures. And I know I haven't had a single person tell me that they wanted their taxes to increase. So on one hand, we're saying we have to cut, we have to be responsible. But then on the other hand, we're saying, oh no, let's have more programs that cost more money. And I just think the benefit, like, this is a very, regardless, I know there's people here who support chickens. I like chickens, I got no problem with chickens. But the problem is this is a resource that the city has to support. It's very unpopular. It is much more unpopular than people think it is. And so why are we going to go ahead and do something that I would say the majority of the city does not want, although there are some very nice people who do want it. The majority of the city does not want this. This costs money. And this isn't going to bring people together. This is an issue that just causes more division. It was brought up in 2015, gone. Brought up in 2022, gone. In my personal opinion, it should be gone in 2026.
Councillor Mohammed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, Councillor Young. However, I am of the opinion that, I mean, I've heard from both sides of the table, people who want chickens and people who don't want them. And I think that a good compromise is a pilot project. It would give us real data. Going back and coming with this information would also help us to be able to analyze whether we should continue with this or not. I'm of the opinion that, you know, if citizens in our community connect with us and they wanted to push something forward, I think there's an opportunity to give it a chance. We've done pilot projects with other things, so I believe we can do it on this one as well. Yeah, those are my 2 cents. Thank you.
I would move forward with option 1, the bylaw right now, and I think that would give us a really good idea of how much it costs in 1 year, just by trying it out. To me, it doesn't, I'm with Councillor Cox that, like, there's birds sold in pet stores to humans that live in Medicine Hat, so what's the difference? And I think that if you're keeping a chicken as a pet, then to me, the logic is that that's fine, given what we've heard tonight. So I think there's already a bit of confusion, but I don't have a dog and I don't have a cat, but I also know that I'm part of a community, and just because I don't personally want something doesn't mean I should prevent what my neighbors can do on their property. And chickens have a lot of, you know, husbandry practices. Kids can, you know, play with them and learn responsibility. They are a source of food if you decide to keep them long-term, sure, but there's also some people who just keep them as pets. And I am also of the view that our community would step up and participate with some of the training, and that wouldn't be completely on us. I think there's lots of groups out there who could certainly do some of that lifting in terms of training people what the appropriate practices are and how to care for chicks and hens. So I personally would just do the bylaw now, and that would be a very easy way to find out how much it costs in a year, and that would be the purpose of a pilot project. I don't like that this does keep coming back for like, let's study it more. I think doing it is a great way to study it. So I know that that's not the motion on the table, which, I mean, I am obviously in favor of it, so I'm find that disappointing, but I will support this motion because I think it is a good thing, and I think that, you know, our community can come together and support this with us, and it won't all be on our shoulders. And I think we should be very careful about limiting what people can do on their own property. Councillor Young, you're a second speaker, so I'm going to go to Interim Manager Hutter.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. And through the chair, I'm hearing from staff that the Q2 deliverable in terms of the engagement might be insufficient. I'm just curious if council would be comfortable if we could extend that to early Q3, just to buy a little bit more time on the engagement side of things.
Someone would have to make that motion. And it can't be the person who made the initial motion.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Cox.
I was the seconder on this motion. So, and Councillor Reinisch was the mover. Councillor Reinisch, could we agree that the motion be changed to read Q3 rather than Q2?
So agreed.
So that's accomplished. I think that's a good move. I was on the board to comment, and if I may, I'll make those comments.
I'm going to go to Councillor Young. And
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cox.
Well, it'll be brief. Keep getting distracted. The motion that's on the floor is so that we can look into this. I don't think we should be debating urban chickens tonight, allowing it or not allowing it. That's why we're directing staff to propose a bylaw, make recommendations about how many chickens you would use, how many households might be allowed in the pilot project, all of those kind of things, also to explore costs and bring all of that back. Then we can have a more fulsome debate with some information about whether urban hens should be allowed. To me, that is not the question tonight. The question is, do we instruct staff to prepare the bylaw and proceed to explain what the costs of a pilot project would be? And I will add to that only that the definition of livestock apparently is the same in the land use bylaw and the responsible animal ownership bylaw, which really only allows for dogs and cats, as I read it. There's a big hole here because we all know that there are lots of people keeping birds and reptiles and rabbits and all kinds of things that might well be considered livestock, pigeons among them. They are an avian species. Are they livestock? How do you, and referring this to whether it's a pet or not, it does not subscribe to the wording of the bylaw. So I think part of this review should be to consider the definition of livestock, but I don't think we need to amend the motion for that. I'm just giving them some admonition that this issue this question of what is livestock is not going to go away.
I could provide some clarification on that, and that would address two things at once. So I misspoke earlier when I stated that the amendment would be made to the land use bylaw. The amendment would actually be made, this is under alternative option 1. The amendment would be made to the responsible animal ownership bylaw. And then livestock means one of the following, and it includes the animals of the avian species, including, as we all know, but does not include cats, dogs, or other domesticated household pets. So it's under that provision under which someone is allowed to have a bird or a reptile.
There was a page turn there and I missed it. And any other animal that is kept but does not include cats, dogs, or other domesticated household pets. Okay, that's
Pretty
still a little
wiggly.
vague, but anyway, there it is. Okay.
Councillor Young, I missed Councillor Varga.
You can go to Councillor
Okay,
Varga.
Councillor Varga?
Well, Mike, through the chair, my question is this, that once we have a pilot project, how do you, if it doesn't work out, how do we get rid of it? That's my question. How do we end that discussion or that pilot project if it doesn't work out? What do we have to do to turn it around? That's my concern. Once it started, it's hard to get rid of those kinds of things. So, just in my books. And to say the least, my last 2 times on council, this came up both times, and I don't think I'm going to change my tune on what we decided on in those 2 terms, and that was not to go ahead with this. So,
Councillor Young?
Thank you. Just to respond to a couple of things to Councillor Mohammed. Again, I don't have any issue with this in principle, but to your point around the pilot, there's literally no difference between a pilot and doing it. Those are going to be the exact same things. So, and to to Mayor Clark saying, well, we'll figure out the money or we'll figure out what it costs once we do it. I fundamentally disagree with that. At the end of the day, if we do a pilot, we might as well be doing it. The analogy that I have in my head right now is this, and to Councillor Cox, you're wondering, why are we debating this? Well, because there is another option. Option 4 is to shelf this, which actually I think is the right thing to do. So that's why we're talking about this, in my opinion, because it's whether or not we tell administration, go and do some more homework, give us all the details, again, spend more money on this, on a very unpopular thing, or cancel it. But the analogy is this. Okay, if we have a house, we all live there, and well, we don't all live there, but some of us do. And we know that we got credit card debt. We know we have debt. We're getting a bill saying, oh, by the way, we're spending a lot more money than we're currently bringing in. And people, like, we understand that. The answer in that situation isn't to go and buy a dog. The answer is to get your other stuff in order. So I just think for me, this is about priorities. I agree with this in principle. This is not a priority for Medicine Hat. So I think we should focus on the priorities for our city.
City Solicitor Bullock?
Thank you. Just through the chair to Councillor Varga, to go, if after a pilot project, council decided not to continue, it would just involve repealing the bylaw that was passed and restoring the previous status quo, if you will. So.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any further speakers. So we'll vote on the motion as amended.
I'm a no.
Thank you. That passes. And we will now move on to item 9.2, development of non-standard crosswalk pavement marking policy. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. On September 15th, 2025, Council directed administration to develop a non-standard pavement marking policy for Council consideration by the end of Q1 of 2026. Much work was completed by administration to develop this policy, and during the cross-department review process, an opportunity arose to consider consolidation and integration of a previous Council request to develop recognition commemoration policy. Administration is requesting extension to no later than the end of Q3 2026. Acting Director Parikh is here to answer any council questions.
So can I get a motion, please?
I so move that Council A approve an extension to the timeline for development of a new policy that no later than the end of Q3 2026.
I'll second.
Thank you. Councillor Mohammed seconds. We could also just not do this, maybe? An option would be just to say we're not doing this? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing no speakers, go ahead, Councillor Pfaff.
Okay, so if the option is to do nothing, what does that look like? So right now, staff is asking for an extension to the timeline to develop a policy about non-standard crosswalk pavement marking policy. What's the existing procedure right now?
There is no procedure right now.
So how did we get that veterans one? Because I assume this is the similar thing, right? That's what we're talking about? That would be an example of something that would fall in this category?
Interim Director Parikh?
Yeah, through the chair. So we got a request and based on, again, we got direction from council to go ahead and complete that one particular request, but looking at future, maybe there will be more similar requests, so we want to go ahead and put together a policy so that we can address these kind of requests in future.
Instead of bringing each individual request straight to council,
Yes.
you'd have a system. Okay.
All right. Seeing no further speakers, let's vote on the motion to extend the timeline for development of a new policy no later than the end of Q3 2026. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes.
That vote passes. Item 9.3, Desert Bloom and Heron Crossing Multi-Use Trail.
Sorry, Mayor Clark,
Yes, go ahead.
my button wouldn't work, but they're also looking for direction as to whether to do a standard crosswalk pavement marking or a non-standard with broad recognition like that. There's two options within the motion, so just a bit of a point of order. Are they looking for that, I'm assuming, before they develop the policy?
Yeah, so there, sorry, through the chair. So there was two recommendations. One was, of course, the extension part, and the other one was if council sees value in combining the two, because they are kind of similar in nature and it'll make more sense to combine the two policy, like the city facility and recognition and commemoration policy 0177 with this crosswalk policy, because it is kind of similar in nature, celebrating, basically elements in the public spaces. So would make sense to kind of have it looked at together.
Councillor Clugston, do you wish to make a motion?
No, not really, because I was actually going to vote against this, to be honest. But I was kind of unsure, is that if the previous council, because that's mostly what we're dealing with here most times, has made a motion to develop this policy, and now they're asking for an extension to the timeline. So I was actually confused as to what we were doing, and then, of course, there's option one and option two. So my vote would have been no to all of this, but.
Do you wish to make a motion? Councillor Pfaff?
Sorry. So to that point, if you're ultimately thinking you want to can this, why would we give an extension and have staff do a bunch of work? Potentially, if it's not gonna fly anyways, let's just save all that work.
Correct.
Okay, so,
But the problem is council's just passed a motion to say that they've given them an extension on the timeline. And I think according to the procedure bylaw, we could not now for 6 months vote. to-
That's just with bylaws. And it's an extension. We can still say, yes, you have this extension, but we don't want to do it anymore at all.
I move that we cease all work on this.
seconded.
Councillor Cox.
I was going to make a motion to include Section B. I think Councillor Reinish, when he made the motion, just overlooked adding B and offered only A. But I'll let him speak for himself on that. In any event, we voted, we had a motion that only reflected the contents of subparagraph A. It's been superseded by another motion that's now on the floor, so I'll save that. But I will vote against this motion that we cease. I think we should do both. Give more time and B, look at the whole picture.
Okay, any other discussion on stopping work on the development of a new policy on non-standard crosswalk pavement markings? Councillor Mohammed.
So if we stop developing the policy, how is it going to impact your department?
Through the chair, again, as I mentioned, if there is any special request for similar type of payment markings, we will have to come back to council for direction and sort of, see how we want to treat that at that time.
Is that what we want to do? We want every request to come back to us and deliberate on it?
We don't have to entertain any requests on pavement markings. But good question. Councillor Hellman?
Thank you through the chair. Why wouldn't we handle this the same way we do with naming? We have a naming committee. Why wouldn't these requests just go through that?
The current policy with the naming committee doesn't address this particular issue. I suppose that could be one recommendation if they continued work on this. But I guess it's about prioritizing the work that we're doing. Any further speakers? Seeing none, we'll vote on the motion put forward by
Can we see what that motion is, so that we're all familiar?
the motion was to cease all work on the development of a new policy to regulate non-standard crosswalk pavement markings.
So in other words, reverse our first motion and not proceed with our second motion.
It's well, the second motion is on the table, which is to stop work.
Yeah, but so, and the effect of that is to reverse our previous motion, and we won't be going ahead with the second part of the motion, which I think was unintentionally overlooked.
Yeah, so I think the only change I would make is that it would render our first motion moot, rather than we're reversing our first motion.
Well, same thing.
All right, Councillor Young has apparently already voted. Can we get a clean slate? Okay, you're locked in. Okay, there we go.
Now you gotta do it again. You can change your mind.
Councillor Varga.
I'm a yes.
All right, that motion is passed. Next item is Heron Crossing, Desert Bloom and Heron Crossing Multi-Use Trail Budget Amendment, 9.3. Councillor Reinish.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, through the chair. The recommended motion by administration differs from the resolution of previous council, and staff have provided options for council's consideration to directly address that council direction. Development and Infrastructure Committee has reviewed the proposed motion and recognized the interests of some members of the public. Committee recommends an open discussion with council. Administration has provided a significant amount of background information in the request for decision. Sandeep Parikh, Interim Director of MW, and Planning Engineer Ashton are in attendance to speak to this item. So I move that council direct staff to stop work on the preliminary design of the Desert Bloom and Heron Crossing multi-use trail and revisit design construction of the MUT during future business planning cycles when the MUT becomes a higher priority within the City of Medicine Hat active transportation network.
Seconder? No seconder? All right, that means we just move on. Okay, well, somebody has to second it or we're moving on.
Okay, I'll second it. Okay, I'll second it so we can talk about it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clugston?
So I would like to amend that motion, and if you could put it back up, whoever had that up. Basically change direct staff to continue work on the preliminary design of Desert Bloom and Heron Crossing multi-use trail. And then I think would get rid of all the rest of that because that assumes that we aren't doing it and bring it up in the future. So I would like to amend it to say council.
If I may, Councillor Clugston, what the alternative motion would be was the budget amendment.
Yes. And then I was going to say, and we amend the budget to add $15,000 or $14,000 or $15,000 to continue design work.
Point of order, I think to change this motion, it is a defeat of the motion. I think we should debate this motion, and if it's defeated, then make another motion. But
I
we
tend to
shouldn't be
agree.
amending this motion to mean the opposite of what it's already stating.
I do agree with that. So we can debate this motion. Someone could call the question if they want. Councillor Clugston, are you still wishing to speak? Councillor Mohammed?
Okay, thank you for bringing this. I did, I took a look at the proposal and, I mean, and also I've heard from the public, just like any concerns, the public bring it to us. And I feel that we should definitely continue to work because we have, the studies done, then there are other opportunities, I think, to be able to see what the cost is and how we can further enhance or develop that community, then make an informed decision. The other thing that I think for me that is a gap in this is the tax, the economic advantage of developing that property. So that trail, I really haven't seen any strong arguments about that. So I would like to further see, that we continue with this because there might be some potential opportunities. Thank you.
Councillor Cox?
Thank you, Your Worship. I support this motion. As much as I understand the plea of those people that live in that area. It is an isolated development. It's out of contiguous contact with other developed parts of the city. And I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that something that is so removed from the city that we should be going out of our way and to connect the trail system there. That day will come, but I agree with this motion. That day is well down the road, and we should just stop all work on. No point in developing a plan if we're not, if we're not prepared to go ahead. And the costs we know are going to be high because it is so far removed from anything else that it would connect to. So I think it's just a case of saying, no, the time is not right for this, and we should discontinue development at this time.
Question, are you wanting to speak? Yeah, so my question is, so we have a list of priorities that's prepared by our Development and Infrastructure Division. and this is listed very low on the priorities. So I feel like the appropriate approach would be to challenge maybe those priorities or reprioritize or however we do that, rather than skip like 70 projects and do this one ahead of them on the planning stage. So my question is, how are those priorities developed, and how often are they reviewed? Managing Director Bohan?
Thank you, Mayor Clark. These were included as part of I should point out, that's part of the draft active transportation strategy. And administration would be fine with reviewing those. Currently, it's not adopted as part of the council. As we know, it's been postponed till the end of Q4. So, but if council directs us, we will absolutely proceed with more information on that.
How are they developed?
So there's a rubric, a value rubric that's put in place that actually has a number of factors that include a number of people that are impacted. I could probably call on Acting Director Parikh to give a more specific example as to what that rubric consists of, with your permission.
Thank you. Thank you, through the chair. So basically, for developing those, there's a matrix we have which have like 5 different criterias, starting from safety, so basically related to crashes, mainly involving vulnerable road users, so basic cyclists and pedestrians. Connectivity or barrier removal, that was one criteria. Accessibility and serving children and seniors, so it's more like, is it a school, playground connection, those kind of things. Serves high-use corridors, so like where we know the volume of pedestrians and cyclists is going to be higher, those will get higher priority. And then financial efficacy, so basically we are saying like if there's synergies with other projects, those projects should be promoted. So those are at a high level 5 different criteria, and each criteria has its own weighting that we put, and then we score all like we got 93 or 7 projects that we kind of looked at, weighted, put scores to each of those criteria and have weighting factors, and finally we come up with total score and then rank that score, and based on that, this is what we get.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Young because I missed him before. Councillor Young.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. I do agree with Councillor Mohammed. We talked about this previously, just about the potential of economic development. I do think this is a unique opportunity in that we're talking about creating a path that ultimately makes a property more, what's the word I'm looking for? Attractive, thank you. It makes it more attractive, which ultimately means more people can potentially buy that property. So I do think that there's weight that comes with that. That being said, I'm not interested in spending $1.2 million on a path. I think that's a lot of money, and what we'd be doing is we'd be ultimately taking that money from other important priorities. So personally, I don't think that's the answer, but I think my question is there has to be a middle ground there. To Managing Director Bohan, we had a conversation. We are getting a lot of other information on this file that I think has us asking questions. One of the main ones is there other partners and potentials for supporting this project together? Right now, I don't agree that the city should pony up $1.2 million. Is there an opportunity to work with the county? From what I understand, the county has said, we will make a decision on that once Medicine Hat makes a decision on that. So again, I think the way it is written now, no, but can we not work with this property owner? Can we not work with the county? Can we not work to find a solution where everyone kind of gives a little bit to ultimately get what we're trying to get here?
Councillor Hellman.
Thank you, Mayor Clark. That was a lot of what I was going to say, but I was going to say that this, on that list of priorities, this differs a little bit than some of the other ones, because the other ones don't all have a potential partnership with, say, Cypress County in them, in a cost-sharing method. So I don't know that they would partner with us or not, but I know they won't for sure if we don't have design and a plan to go ahead with something. So I would be in favor of going ahead with the design, looking at partnership opportunities with Cypress County. I know that other path that goes from Desert Bloom, down South Boundary Road there had partnership with a Rotary Club. There's potential partnership opportunities with a developer. I think we should look at those avenues, but not write this one off because it's number 77 on a list.
Councillor Mohammed.
Thank you. Thank you. I echo everything that's been said. I also just wanted to add, this is a conversation that we've had in DNI, so I've definitely have my head over this more than many people in the room, but I just wanted to say that, I mean, if you drive that area, there are other criteria that we definitely want to take a look at. If you drive that area, there are heavy utility vehicles driving that road. There are some kids that live in that community. So there's no shoulder, there's nothing, maybe, you know, in that area. So I think that's something worth paying attention to. And anyway, and I echo what Councillor Young said. We are getting different information. So this allows us to further that conversation and go back and take a look at different alternatives too. Thank you.
Councillor Pfaff, did you have your?
I did not.
Okay. And Councillor Varga, I think the thing that's like getting me is that maybe we need to look at the priorities and how we maybe have different categories, types of paths or types of infrastructure. Also, I guess I'm reluctant because when you approve the planning, then it's like, well, we've already done the planning, now we have to pay for the actual path, and I do not want to pay 100% of this project. So I think that Councillor Hellman and Councillor Young have both indicated what I think is a good step, which is maybe we do increase the budget, get the plan, and then figure out how we're going to cooperate with others to pay for it. On that, just one question. How like if we're doing like a plan and getting an estimate, do those become stale dated? And if so, how far, like how much of a cushion do we have?
Thank you, Your Worship. It really depends what is taken into account with regard to safety. Things like slope stability, the alignment of the actual trail. A lot of those factors won't change, but they may need to be updated at a point in the future. Acting Director Parikh, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, thank you, through the chair. So you're right. So geologically, like, the geotech investigations and some of the engineering probably would not be impacted. Construction costs keep changing, so maybe whenever we are, probably update that a little bit. And this is preliminary. There may be a little bit more work required to get to the final detailed design, but this should probably be quite sufficient and should not change a whole lot in the which can be salvaged. And whenever we decide to go ahead, we can probably use some of it.
Okay. Councillor Clugston.
I just want to make sure everybody, if you're in favor of moving forward, it's a no vote. And then we'll, I've seen so many councils.
That's a great clarification.
Yes.
Yeah. That's decades of experience, folks, right there.
Okay.
Councillor Cox.
I agree with that. So I'd like to see the motion up there so we know, but I agree. If you want to put further planning on this off, then you're going to vote yes. And if you're saying, well, let's explore it a little further and do some planning, even though we know we're not ready to go ahead with the full cost of a deal, then vote no.
All right. And then perhaps Councillor Clugston, just to note, there are, in the event that this does not pass, there are alternative options listed for you. Okay. All right, let's vote. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
I'm a no.
All right, so that does not pass. And I assume Councillor Clugston will be making a motion?
Yeah, sorry, my battery died. So can we put those other motions up there? I'll make one up, but if we got one already,
The alternatives.
yeah,
Do you need a charger?
that would, yeah,
Computer?
sure. But do you want to get this done?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Is there alternative motions? Yes? Okay, well then I'll just make one up.
Well, I can read it to you.
Sure, perfect.
Increase the current approved budget by $14,000. Continue with the preliminary MUT design. And return to council with a request for decision to proceed with construction. There's also the option of defer construction until it becomes a priority, and the option of reprioritizing approved operating expenses to get the 14,000. So I think we're going, if someone is typing, increase the current approved budget by $14,000, comma, continue with the preliminary MUT design, comma, and return to council with a request for decision to proceed with construction.
So moved.
Seconded.
Thank you, Councillor Young.
So I think I still have questions on the 14,000. Like, I understand we had approved budget of 70,000 and now it's 84,000, but that was predicated on a project of $1.2 million. Why do we need to get another $14,000? Why do we need to spend $84,000 before we go and look at, do we have the right partners? Listen, we don't need to spend $84,000 on detailed engineering and all the specific things about this coulee and then determine, oh, is the county gonna come? Is the developer, is the property owner gonna come? So I don't think we should increase our budget by 14,000. I think we can go and figure that stuff out before we go. We don't need do we need to spend $84,000 to tell us that this project is gonna cost $800,000? Is that how much it's gonna cost us to do that? Why can't we just start calling people and figuring this out?
Well, that could be an amendment to this. I want to say after the 14,000, it could be added subject to finding funding partners for the construction of the pathway, but someone would have to make that motion. Councillor Mohammed.
Yeah, so I want to echo what Councillor Young mentioned. I mean, in some of the conversations that we had earlier too, that there might be an opportunity to bring the construction cost down, right? So, which you had mentioned. So, is it going to be the same design, or is the study or the, what do you call it, the design going to provide multiple options? This is something that maybe Managing Director can answer. Because if we were doing the design based on the initial quote, and then now there's an opportunity to do it in an alternate way, would it cost the same thing?
Managing Director Bohan?
Thanks, Your Worship. I will call Acting Director Parikh up, but if we change the scope of what we originally asked for, that could definitely impact the budget that we requested, but I'll leave it to any other clarification from Acting Director Parikh.
So this quote that we're talking about, the cost estimate 1.2, or we have an estimate of 814,000, so there are two different costs that we have. They're both based on that this is a paved trail meeting standard. That means the slope should meet certain standard, the width should meet certain standard. So we are assuming that we want an engineered proper, that can be used without, that can maintain, that can support the operation and maintenance. So that is the assumption. I mean, reducing the cost, it is possible, but then it's like we are compromising, like, for example, maintenance, or maybe if you don't want a paved surface, that can save some costs. So we can give those options along with the design, but again, we can sort of, there will be some variables that we can have, but then finally we can choose what we want to do. So yes, there will be some options we can look at, but again, we want to do the right thing and right design criterias and right design standards to be followed.
Thank you for your comment. And thank you, appreciate it. And let's just put this, for us, we adopted this project. So we got, just so that everybody gets this, we got a lot of information from staff, but we also got a ton from the public. And so every council member here right now is going, where do we lean on? So that's why you're seeing this going. So that's why we're asking for this kind of negotiation. In some of our conversations, we were also told that somebody was willing to donate the land. So hence you're hearing partners, So if somebody donate the land, my question is the design going to change based on the space that now we realize we have? So there's a lot of these questions that we have, and that's why we're trying to really make sure that this, this motion is flexible enough so that we can capture that information. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I won't be supporting this motion. I think we're really putting the cart way before the horse. I think we need to remember that both the two districts that are going to benefit from this are Desert Bloom, which is not part of our community, that's in the county. It only went ahead because they pressed and pressed and pressed for non-contiguous development. And the city finally said, okay, we'll bring you power and water and sewer. And now we've got this expensive subdivision outside of our city limits. Canyon Creek is a similar situation. This is country living in the city. Well, I'm sorry, if you want country living in the city, it's going to be that, country living. But you shouldn't be expecting that a municipal trail system is going to connect you up, particularly, and all that's being proposed is that this would connect them to Desert Bloom. So now, there's no way I can support this. This is contrary to what we should be doing for the residents of Medicine Hat. The benefit is way disproportionate to the cost, and I won't be supporting it.
Councillor Varga.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can we get clarification? This land is actually City of Medicine Hat land. Am I correct? It's part of the Cimarron development?
No. Managing Director Bohan.
Actually don't know the answer to that question, but
Reason I'm asking that is because we just did a land use bylaw change down in that coulee for the City of Medicine Hat at MPC. So I'm sure that it's part of the Medicine Hat that land
Are you
is
asking
on.
that, is it in the boundaries of Medicine Hat or is it owned by Medicine Hat?
Well, it's our land, I believe. It's a City of Medicine Hat land, right? It's part of Cimarron, is it not?
The land for the path?
Yeah, like it falls within the city limits.
It does fall within the city. Oh, well, I'm not going to answer that. I thought you were asking who owned the land.
Yeah, but I'm sure that it's part of the city's land boundaries.
Okay. Interim Director, do you have an answer for
Yeah,
that?
through the chair. So yeah, it is within the municipal boundary of Medicine Hat, yes.
Councillor Young.
Clarity on what Councillor Cox says. Is this path going from this community to Desert Bloom? That's the only, no, it's connecting to our trail. Yeah, but this is connecting back into the city, right? Not going to Desert Bloom. No, I want to make sure we're crystal clear on that. I don't want any ambiguity.
Interim Director.
Yeah, so this proposed alignment connects to the existing trail, which is along the south boundary trail. So it does connect to Desert Bloom, but then it also takes you towards South Ridge Drive and then College and other places.
So we already have 70,000 in the budget for this. I recognize that's a lot of money, but can we not use that to work towards coming towards an agreement with the parties here? If we can't do that, then this can die. But why can't we go and try to make a deal work? That's ultimately my question.
Well, I would suggest we don't need the $70,000 to try and get a deal. The $70,000 is for the plan.
But we're still going to have to provide like the plan has to be based on an actual design, right? And can we not do a $70,000 design? Like, it seems like, well, it has to be 84,000. Well, why don't we go back to them and say, no, it has to be 70,000?
Interim Director Parikh?
I mean, we have outlined the scope. That includes soil investigation and the preliminary design for the alignment. So it has certain scope that we can always trim scope, but then we'll have to do it later on when we do the detailed design. So it all depends on, we thought this is the right time to kind of address some of the key issues that we should look at. So that's the scoping part of it.
So as a reminder, can we get the current motion up? Managing Director Barda.
Yeah, Mayor Clark, just wondering if we could adjust the motion to include the funding source for the $14,000. That would be through operating reserves.
Thank you very much. That is a good correction. Go ahead.
I would like to suggest that we add a timeline to it because we want to make sure that we get direction as to when we want to report back.
Okay, so are we saying we're increasing the budget to reprioritize current approved operating expenses, or we're drawing from operational reserves?
You can add on there that the funding source would be through operating reserves.
Councillor Clugston? Do you agree to that?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Reinish?
Yes.
Thank you. And have you considered a timeline?
I would really leave that up to staff, how long they think this is going to take. 3 months? I'm looking at 3 months? Yeah.
Q3, please.
Q3, okay.
Councillor Varga? You're muted, Councillor Varga.
Sorry about that. Through the chair, I just got a message that said that this land was donated. So it's donated land, so there's no cost to the land where the trail's supposed to go.
That is not confirmed.
Okay,
Managing Director Bohan.
Yeah, no, that hasn't, to our knowledge, has not been transacted at this point in time, but it's something we can explore in this initial design phase.
Did you get that, Councillor Varga?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Just wondering where this came from then, so, because it must be some truth behind it.
Okay, there was discussions about that at one point, but nothing has been transacted or transferred to the city. All right, Councillor Young, and then I'm going to say we vote on this motion.
Yes, let's go. And I know people are like, it's just a path, get on with it, but I do think this is important. What happens if we say no to this? Because like in principle, I don't feel like going to reserves to get another $14,000, but I do think this is important and we need to move forward with it. I think we can do that with the 70,000 we have. So if I say no, I guess what happens if we say no to this? Is it done? Is it dead?
Well, the existing motion that we do it with $70,000 is still active. So I think staff is telling us they can't do it for 70,000, but that motion would just remain unamended. Councillor Cox.
I think to address Councillor Young's question, the motion addresses doing the preliminary design. I think the advice that we received when we talked about this in closed council from Director Bohan was that the county said, no, we're not interested in helping you with the cost of developing this trail until you make up your mind what you're going to do. And they would want to see this kind of design work before they, and an estimate of the cost of what it would take to build it before they'd sign on. So if you're hoping that we could find a partner, then probably you need to do this design work. But that's if you're hoping to find a partner. They may yet say, you're still way too far off, and so I'm still voting against this motion.
Just thank you for the clarity, Councillor Cox. I appreciate that. That makes sense.
Okay. So we have a motion before us. We will now vote on that motion. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
I'm a yes.
And that is passed. You don't trust me?
I just want to know who voted.
Okay, so with that passing, we will move on to new business, committee business, 2026 Community Vibrancy Grants, projects and activities. Councillor Cox.
Yes, there is, and I will make that motion. Let me just see if I can find it here. I move that council approves the distribution of the 2026 Community Vibrancy Grants in the Community Projects and Activities stream as per the Community Vibrancy Advisory Board recommendations. And to simply comment on that further, the Community Vibrancy Board did a very extensive job of reviewing all of these applications. They were able to both devote themselves to the study of all the proposals and the amounts of money that were being asked for. They had a template of criteria to apply, and they had opportunity to debate that. They then presented their recommendations to Public Services Committee. We had some questions, particularly about the applications that were denied funding or reduced funding. And I think I can say, and I'll let the other members of the committee speak for themselves, but I think we were satisfied that the Community Vibrancy Board had done a thorough investigation of this, that their recommendations are sound, and we can support them. And I would urge council to do that. I think it would only be advisable if we had some really fundamental disagreement over a particular recommendation. And nothing like that was apparent to us. So I hope you will support this motion.
Can I get a seconder, please?
A second.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed. Any discussion? Seeing no speakers, we'll vote on the motion put forward by Councillor Cox to approve the distribution of the 2026 Community Vibrancy Grants. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Young has stepped out, so we can reveal that passes. Congratulations to all of those who are recipients of grants, and good luck with your projects. Item 11.3, rate class and meters.
What about 11.2?
Oh, my apologies. Oh, yes, 11.2, public participation framework, progress report and public participation policy, the actual policy. Councillor Hellman.
I move that council approves, oops, sorry, I'm on the wrong page. I move that council receives the public participation progress report for information, approves public participation policy 0192-2026 as presented, and rescinds public participation policy 0165.
Seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Hellman, would you like to speak to this item, introduce this item?
I was not at the last Corporate
Okay.
Services Committee meeting.
My apologies.
Councillor Young and Councillor Varga were there.
Were you at we're on item 11.2, Public Participation Framework, Progress Report, and Policy. Just looking to see if someone from the committee wanted to give an introduction. The motion has been put on the table.
I don't have an introduction. I think they can do a great job of introducing themselves.
Thank you. Yes. Go ahead.
I think Councillor Hellman maybe has some notes on this item.
Why would you think that?
Okay, it turns out I do have some speaking notes on this item. So this was a council motion in 2025 that directed admin to review and revisit the public participation policy to ensure that public comments received through engagements are provided to council in an unedited form, to ensure that summaries or themes are included as supplemental information, and clear mechanisms are established in how public feedback is collected and considered in decision-making. The team has prepared a new public participation policy and procedure which lays a solid foundation for how we conduct public engagement. They have also developed a formal framework for to better coordinate and implement public engagement efforts. So I will turn it over to Colleen Graham, Director of Communications, Engagement and Marketing, and Safira LaChapelle, Public Participation Specialist, to walk us through the presentation.
Thank you, everyone, and good evening. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here to speak about public participation, our new framework, and our proposed policy updates. So with me tonight is Safira LaChapelle, our public participation specialist. Safira LaChapelle joined our team in 2024 and just recently completed a master's degree in community engagement. So we're really excited to have her expertise and skills joining our organization over the past 2 years. So I did want to start the presentation just by giving a bit of background on what brought us here tonight. So in 2023, we began the background work to create a public participation framework for the organization. So the framework was really needed for a number of reasons. Two noteworthy ones are we really saw rising expectations from both City Council and our community, our residents, when it comes to public engagement. Now more than ever, residents really want to have a role in decision-making in their communities. And we also observed that the approach to public engagement was really inconsistent across the organization, as was the level of expertise that our staff had, and most efforts were being conducted off the side of the desk, as we like to say. So in order to get the ball rolling in developing the framework, we actually wanted to engage with the community on engagement and learn a little bit more to better understand our current state from employees, as well as what our community member wanted to see through our public engagement framework. So we conducted internal focus groups with staff. We conducted a focus group with our working group for accessibility and inclusion. We did public focus groups following a community survey where we invited those community survey respondents to let us know if they wanted to participate in a focus group. And following all of that activity, we published a What We Heard report to our Shape Your City site in 2023. Once that work was complete, it became very apparent that this was a really important effort that couldn't be completed off the side of the desk. So we developed a business case and brought it forward to City Council prior to the 23-24 budget, requesting a dedicated role to support public engagement. And fortunately, that was approved. We really appreciated ELT and Council's support on that. So in 2024, we were able to hire Safira into the role. So she immediately began developing the framework in 2020, or pardon me, when she started here midway through 2024, and by the end of the year, she had completed the framework. That was using the information that we had gathered in 2023, as well as consulting with colleagues, bringing her education into the mix, and also doing a review of other public participation frameworks at other municipalities throughout Alberta. So with the framework complete at the end of 2024, we began implementing the framework in 2025. And over the course of the year, we had the opportunity to pilot it across a variety of projects, and Safira will speak to a few of those tonight. So now, a year later, we're here to share an update. So in your package, as mentioned, you have a progress report on the implementation of the framework. It describes our journey over the past few years to create this solid foundation for how we conduct public engagement efforts. And we've also brought forward an updated policy for your consideration. So it reflects our increased understanding of public participation, as well as the changing expectations that we're seeing from our community and from our city council, and from our staff as well. The policy updates also address the motion that was referred to by Councillor Hellman prior to the presentation. One thing I do want to note before I hand it off to Safira to walk you through the rest of the presentation is we are still very early in our journey. We've heard from city staff members who have had negative experiences when engaging with the community, and we've heard from our community members that they've often had negative experiences and felt discounted when trying to engage in important city decisions. And we just want to acknowledge that experience and that it's going to take some time for us to transform the work, or to do transformative work around how both our staff and our community feel about public engagement. But we do feel a lot of momentum building, and that with each small success, we're working to build trust, mutual respect, and cohesion with our community. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Safira. She's going to talk a little bit more about public engagement, our new framework, and our early learning and observations, as well as the proposed policy updates.
Hello. Thank you for having me here today. So I'll run through this PowerPoint and then we'll have room for discussion here. So what is engagement? Our public participation efforts are based on IAP2, the International Association of Public Participation. Public participation is any process that involves the public in problem solving or decision making and uses public input to make decisions. Importantly, it's a two-way dialogue. There are a variety of benefits to public participation. These can relate to better outcomes and action, as well as mitigating risk. Supporting trust and relationship building between the city staff and citizens is an improved outcome, and serving as a sounding board is a great risk mitigation benefit. So who is the public? Understanding who is most affected in our decision-making is critical. IAP2 uses this model to describe who is closest to a decision. That's the orbits of participation. So somebody who maybe has a park project and they're backing right onto the park, they would be most affected by that decision versus somebody who lives across town and maybe just goes to that park once in a while or never does. We engage differently with observers than we do with those who are directly affected, and we seek out those most affected to center these voices when we work on projects. Being aware of barriers to engaging with people and mitigating those reasons goes a long way in supporting diverse and meaningful engagement experiences. Public input is one of the inputs that goes into decision making, showing how public input can influence decisions making. How public input can influence decision making is a key part of setting expectations. So we'll often use this weave. Public input alone is not the only thing driving decision making. There's technical experience, standards, different codes we have to follow depending on the project. And then there's council staff direction. There might be guiding policies. All of those things have to be understood and scoped out when we're doing a project to understand what really goes into the decision making. It's really hard to see on here, but in your package, there's a bigger picture. City of North Vancouver has a nice little graphic here that more fully describes all the factors that go in to decision making, such as finances, etc. So there are common misconceptions in public participation. One is, for example, the same approach works every time. In fact, each project requires a custom approach that is built on scope, context, barriers, resources, and more. Another misconception is technical experts should be making the decisions. In fact, public input contributes essential information that adds value and supports uptake in any project. So getting to our framework, which I'll just very briefly describe, we have a 6-step process. It's informed, as Colleen mentioned, by building on our internal strengths, feedback we've heard from other departments, from the public, conversations with other municipalities, the IAP2 pillars, and more. Our framework is hosted currently internally on our SharePoint site, with resources and tools being added to support the work we do as we move along and understand more what types of supports we need. Just as an example, we heard from my colleagues that an assessment tool was needed to determine what engagement level projects kind of land on, and that's a tool that's available on our SharePoint site, as well as many other resources and templates. So what drives engagement? This is the first step of the framework, determining when engagement is needed. This resource guides staff to assess if an external driver is present. We just need one, there may be more than one, and then prepare internal capacity for an engagement project. And there we want to hit all 5 of those capacity items. So Shape Your City is where you or the public would find any of our engagement projects. We encourage all residents, staff, and council members to register for this platform, to receive our e-news alerts related to any upcoming projects you can participate in. We'll send out alerts about, okay, we've got a What We Heard report or other information that's important to know related to these projects here. Shape Your City is linked from the bottom of our city website. So Shape Your City clearly describes public influence and project scope. Primarily, we are trying to do better in making sure the community understands how they can influence a decision. As well, reporting back through our reports, What We Heard reports, What We Decided reports, their influence on those scoped items that relate to decision making. So getting near the end here, understanding our promise. The framework includes a list of endorsed engagement techniques and support with finding the right level and technique. The New Zealand government uses this triangle to describe shallow methods as providing an easy and fast way for participants to add ideas, vote, or comment, whereas deep methods require more participant investment because they encourage participants to consider content and work together. Each engagement is unique and determined by contextual factors. Going higher on the spectrum or higher on the triangle is not better than going lower. Each have their place, and the work of planning engagements means understanding what is appropriate for the community and the project scope, while also recognizing what is possible with constraints of time, budget, and capacity. So just as we get to the end here, I don't know what happened there. But I'm going to highlight 3 success stories. I'll just get to the right slide. So the first one is Samus TP dance floor resurfacing. The Samus TP dance floor project came through Parks and Rec after determining that engagement was required with the Indigenous community. The current dance floor is rutted, extremely abrasive, and hard on traditional dress and footwear. A plan was developed with goals that included building relationships and trust, developing a culturally accepted plan, and understanding future improvements to make this site more usable for the Indigenous community who use this space. Meewasin Friendship Center was our project partner and has expressed their appreciation for being at the table for this process, working with their community to best understand who would be most affected and interested in influence over this project, working in a good way with timing that allowed for elder and community participation, selecting an Indigenous engineering consultant from Guyanite to support the design process, and strengthening our relationship and understanding of Indigenous ways of working. Another early success we've seen. And I will, oh, sorry, I should have said the previous one, that was definitely high on the triangle. A smaller group of people working in a more intense way, more open-ended goals. So that would also fall on sort of a collaborate, empower level. Harlow, we're kind of working here on a consulting level, but we're kind of in the middle of the triangle because we were also working somewhat deeply with some neighborhood champions, and we really knew the community there. So in recent times with the Harlan Noble Park Restoration Project, Harlow neighbors had felt their voices weren't included as they should be in projects related to their neighborhood. Knowing this context, this deep utility and park restoration project brought neighbors along very early in the planning process and engaged with those most affected by door knocking. Neighborhood Champion was involved throughout, including supporting flyer delivery and information sharing through Facebook. A project page outlined clearly the scope of influence as well as described why the project was occurring. And resident feedback has expressed gratitude for this project, for this process, and felt the experience had helped to build back relationships with the city. Final example is Facilities for the Future. This is also on the consult level, but on the triangle, this is what I would consider to be very shallow engagement. We reached a very broad group of the population. And that's where you can kind of see just the numbers there is what we're quantifying. So in the fall, council directed a project to assess public support around funding and location of new proposed rec facilities. Using a survey and other direct outreach methods, we saw success with broad community awareness, including promotion at in-person events over culture days and door drops near the proposed site. We saw our highest survey uptake in a short 2-week turnaround, and most people impacted, such as residents and recreation users, were quick to participate in the online survey and meet and greets. Most of them knew about it before we even came. So just to sort of wrap up here to get to our discussion, what we are doing next in this coming year is seeing success, but also seeing opportunities for growth. The progress report in your package identifies 13 early learnings and 5 actions for how you can support P2. These next steps are actions we plan to take through 2026 to address the early learnings. To highlight a few of those learnings, ensuring we are defining how the public can influence decisions and projects, keeping our promises, reporting back on how input influence decisions, and closing the loop on communications, seeking out those most affected, and reducing barriers to participation to encourage engagements that are reflective of our diverse community, giving time and resources for engagement, including involving CHEM as a partner, endorsing the value of public input and what it brings to our projects, policies, and plans, creating safe spaces for engagement to encourage dialogue, not debate, and considering opportunities to work with communications, engagement, and marketing on projects where public input can have influence. So included in your package is a policy update. Key changes to the policy are clarifying roles, including the role the public has in keeping up to date on opportunities, updating principles in line with IP2 values, clear procedures to follow, including the framework, and as Colleen mentioned, adding that motion into the policy. So that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, I'm struggling to understand from your presentation how, like, the connection between this and the motion that was passed, which was pretty specific to bringing options forward to ensure that all public comments received through engagement processes are provided to council in their original unedited form, and that summaries of thematic analyses, if included, are supplementary and not replaced for the full record of public input. So that's a fairly discrete piece of work, and just wondering how we got to this, which your presentation didn't really touch on that piece.
Yeah, I believe the policy was due for an update, and when that motion was made, I believe those two things were brought together at the same time. So in the policy now, we've updated to include making sure that raw data is provided back to council.
But there's no options, that's just it? That's the, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So we do have the motion on the floor, on the table. Any discussion? Seeing none. Councillor Young.
Just, I appreciate this. Obviously, we saw this in our committee. It's so important that we do this right. So I appreciate your experience on this and helping us figure this out. Public participation, how we do it is so critical to the role of municipal government. We can mess this up in 1,000 different ways. So thank you for helping us figure this out together. Not sure about the motion and not sure about the specifics there, but I know this work is incredibly important. It's helping us with things in Riverside. It's helping us in, other public engagements that we have. And so we got to do this right. Thank you for helping us.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I found this very interesting and a helpful guide, which I hope our various departments will take, not just under advisement, but take hold of and implement when they begin their public engagement process. And we dealt with one earlier this evening, well, I guess it was enclosed when we were talking about it, but with respect to 3rd Street North, I do hope that as that proceeds, the admonitions that are found within this and the direction that you're not just here to advise and educate, you're actually here to consult and take input and bring it back to council, probably through staff, committee, and ultimately to council. But these are important steps, and I endorse this policy, but it will only work if we use it sincerely. Thank you.
Can you point out to me the metrics of success and how we're measuring that? I am not finding the page.
Yeah. Mayor Clark, the principles, I think, are a pretty good one, but the assessment tool, which is mentioned in here, is an update that's going to come to the framework that I think it's more 24 indicators of success. Is that what you're referring to, or just in general metrics for success?
How we're going to know whether we're doing a good job at engagement.
Yeah, so we have a assessment tool that will be coming momentarily that'll be up on our SharePoint site. And that's 24 indicators we can go through, and any project can kind of score themselves on that, or I could score them. And then at the end of each project, we do a survey with the community that is asking questions related to what we know from the literature of effective engagement. Those are two things we have right now. More can be developed around that.
Thank you. I don't see any further.
Oh, wait.
Councillor Bargat.
Yes, sorry. I want to go back to one of the slides that you gave me on the facilities for the future. I know you started talking about, Mayor, you started talking about the metrics. I'm always concerned by the metrics and the lack of people's interests actually to doing surveys or to going out to conversations at meet and greets. And I see that in the facilities for the future. It's a very important part to where we go in the future. And we only had 35 conversations at the meet and greet. So does that mean that we didn't have that many people that came out to that? And the rest was done through visits on the Shape Your City website, surveys completed, which isn't bad. The postcard things, you got 2 postcards I see that were distributed. directly and indirectly. User groups, which is great. I think they're very important to some of that stuff. So I think the metrics are going to be very important. I always look at those things and go, man, we're basing our information on very few people commenting on what it is that we want to accomplish in this. So I think this is very good for what we're going to do in the future. And I hope we really go at it real hard and figure out how to do this the best that we can, because I think it's important that we get that feedback, and hopefully, like Councillor Cox had said, the next one's going to be very important on 3rd Street. And you're going to get a lot of comments there too. So, but I think the whole city should be involved in some of these things that happen. And I hope that they will be, because someday it might come to their area and they might have to have other people help them out, convince the city that it's a good time to do things there. So I'm glad that you're doing this, but it always concerned me with the metrics and how we look at it in the end after we've get all the information in. So I hope we continue to do a good job on that. And I hope that people are interested in doing this for us as a council and for the city. So thank you for putting all this together.
Yes, thank you. And I will just note one more thing, is that most of the items listed on the screen, other than potentially the first two, are outputs. And I would like us to measure outcomes. So hopefully that is the plan. No further speakers. We'll vote on the motion put forward by Councillor Hellman. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
I'm a yes.
Thank you. And that passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is rate class and meters. We have with us Director of Energy Marketing and Business Analysis, Travis Tuchscher. And he is going to give us a presentation. Councillor Clugston, would you like to introduce?
I think that this presentation speaks for itself, frankly.
Okay.
Now, and I'm just, would you like the motion first before we do the presentation?
Sure, go ahead.
I move that council approves option 2, existing electric utility rate design and supplementary enhancements, and closes council motions from 1 August 18th, 2025, 187, 188, 189, and 2 from September 29th, 2025, 254.
Seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Go ahead, Director Tuchscher.
Great, thank you. So we'll start for tonight, a quick overview. We'll clearly define the concern, which is really the impact of a rate class transition for low load factor customers moving from small commercial to medium commercial customer classes. We'll go into some common misconceptions concerning rates. We'll also get into some detail on why load factor matters. We'll go through some options that we've presented for this. And we'll explore the council motions and then give you the recommendation for this for these rate class options. So the concern to clearly identified, it's low load factor customers experience high unit energy costs compared to average load factor customers when transitioning from small commercial to medium commercial rates. The challenge is to find a balanced solution that addresses the concern without compromising the utility and unduly shifting costs to other ratepayers. We'll dig into what load factor means, but it's important to understand that low load factor does not equal low demand. You can have two customers with the same demand. One can be a low load factor and one can be a medium to high load factor customer. So just at a very high level, on a distribution company, we look to recover our costs plus return of and a regulated return on the capital spent. Infrastructure is built for capacity and not for consumption. Therefore, demand or kVA matters more than consumption or kilowatt hours when allocating the costs. The rate structure shifts at medium commercial class. Moving from consumption billing to demand billing when transitioning from small to medium rate class. This step change is magnified for low load factor customers. In theory, all accounts would have demand meters and everyone would be billed on demand, but it is impractical and not economically feasible to do that. So as you can see in the dotted line, that is the shift between small commercial and medium commercial. You can see the two billing factors in small commercial are dollars per day plus $1 per kilowatt charge. And then shifting to medium commercial, it's dollars per day plus $1 per kVA charge. So basically, medium commercial is billed on peak demand. So touching on some quick misconceptions. First, businesses in Medicine Hat cannot shop for alternative rates. Well, in fact, distribution rates are different than retail rates. Distribution rates are the cost to deliver the power, and the retail rate is the cost of the actual power generated. Customers can't shop for distribution rates anywhere in the province. It's not feasible to have multiple distribution company wires, poles, infrastructure installed, as this creates a monopoly. That is why the AUC regulates jurisdiction rate approval process to protect the customer. While Medicine Hat is not governed by the AUC, the city follows AUC principles in spirit and provides competitive rates, which is governed by City Council. Second, the range of demand in medium commercial class, 25 kVA to 2,000 kVA, is too broad. Rate class definitions are derived from customer base that they serve. They are defined by groups of like customers with shared load profiles. Medicine Hat's medium commercial rates are principally designed to serve customers with demands of 150 kVA or less. 90% of the rate class is comprised of customers below 150 kVA, and furthermore, half of this class has a demand of less than 40 kVA. Next, I'm a small business. Why am I charged medium commercial rates? Medium commercial is not indicative or an assumption of the size of the business operation. For example, number of employees or revenue. It is a term assigned to a rate class to denote electricity usage behavior. We understand the nomenclature can be misleading, and administration will consider different naming conventions for the next bylaw in the fall. My infrastructure didn't change, so why did my rates? This is simply due to cost causation and subsequent system impacts from increased demand. In many cases, the infrastructure already exists, but the customer's use of the infrastructure has changed and therefore may get reclassed based on this usage. When the customer meets the threshold, in this case 25 kVA, that justifies the need for the infrastructure, and they move to the new rate class that closely matches the cost of the infrastructure. In theory, customers would be billed on demand, but is impractical and economically infeasible, as I said previously. Consumption billing for residential and small commercial customers is administratively efficient and avoids material demand meter costs. Demand metering is a more accurate form of cost causation, and therefore recovery method through the use of demand rates, when applicable, is the most preferred approach. Understanding load factor. I'll try to keep this one short, but it can get confusing. On the graph on the right, you can see two different customer profiles. They both have the same cost for the utility to service this customer, as they both utilize the same level of demand. And in this graph, the red dotted line is equivalent to 25 kVA. So customer A is the blue. You can see that they hit a peak, but relatively use low energy compared to that peak throughout the month. And customer B, which is in the green, is a consistent usage and uses more consumption and closely uses and matches their demand more closely throughout the month. I'll use the formulas to try and help, and also analogy as well. So in this first case, customer A, the low load factor customer, uses 1,500 kilowatt hours per month, but reaches the kVA on the bottom of 25 times the hours in the month. If you do that calculation, it comes out to an 8% load factor, so a low load factor customer. The customer B in that graph uses 7,000 kilowatt hours a month, same peak demand, 25 kVA, times the hours, and they get to a 38% load factor customer. If I use an analogy of a motorcycle, you have the option to ride a motorcycle, but you have to pay for that motorcycle. So whether you use it once a month or consistently throughout the month, say 20 or 30 days, you still need to pay for the motorcycle to have that access. And therefore, in the blue customer, they're equivalent to, say, somebody who rides their motorcycle once or twice a month but still needs access to the motorcycle. The green customer is equivalent to somebody who'd ride their motorcycle 20 to 30 days a month, basically using it all throughout the month and more fully utilizing that motorcycle. Hopefully that helps and didn't confuse it more.
May I say, I've heard a lot of analogies on this one. That was the best so far. It's very good.
So low load factor and its effect on rate class transition. Low load factors, customers, relatively high demand, low consumption, receive a lower utility bill through consumption billing, small commercial, due to cross-subsidization. When I say cross-subsidization, that's just within the rate class small commercial. That means high load factor customers are paying a slightly higher portion of the cost they cause versus what the low load factors cause. And the next graph will probably make it a little clearer. This transition for low load factor customers is very common within the industry, but is rarely mitigated through rate design. It does not reflect a failure in the rate design methodology. Oops, sorry. So this is the graph I was referring to. So on the left, you have a low load factor customer. The orange or red line on the top is the cost of the utility to serve that customer. Under consumption billing, which is the far left green box, that small commercial customer only pays a share of what their actual cost is, and therefore is underpaying for what the cost to the utility is. On the flip side, if they were in medium commercial, they would be the box on the right based on demand-based billing, and they would be paying the cost to serve that customer. As can be seen on the far right, this is a 28% load factor customer. You can see under the consumption based on the left side of that, it is under recovering, but not to the same extent as a low load factor customer. And same principle on the far right. If they're billed based on demand, the utility would be fully recovering all their costs to serve that customer. So actions taken to date, I'll just highlight a few. We completed a third-party review and validation of our rate setting methodology. We did a jurisdictional scan and analysis related to demand billing and corresponding demand thresholds. We formalized the procedure for rate reclassification, and we've analyzed and revealed impacts of several different modifications, including the options we'll present tonight. So some key findings: Medicine Hat rate reclassification process and defined grace period are materially more generous than industry standards. One example is in other jurisdictions, rate reclassification can occur immediately and often within only 2 days, if you only breach it within 2 days out of the year. In the City of Medicine Hats is a rate reclassification with a 3-month grace period. Medicine Hat does not bill customers for their 12-month peak demand. We bill just on each month's peak demand. The difference is if you hit, say you hit 30 kVA 1 month, you would be billed the full year on 30 kVA. In Medicine Hat, you get billed on your kVA for each specific month. So even if you hit 30 1 month and 20 every other month, you'd be billed on the 20 kVA for the remaining months. And then lastly, comparatively, Medicine Hat's medium commercial distribution rates are generally lower than infrastructure equivalent jurisdictions in the province. So these are graphs that show the comparison for other jurisdictions. We've specifically compared to Red Deer and Lethbridge. So a low load factor customer pays $156 per month less than Lethbridge, but does pay more than Red Deer. However, an average load factor customer, which is shown on the right, the City of Medicine Hat pays $172 less per month in the City of Medicine Hat as compared to Lethbridge, and $161 less per month compared to Red Deer. So just back to identifying the concern that low load factor customers experience higher unit energy costs when transitioning from small to medium commercial customer classes. So a quick summary of the options that we've looked into. The first option is considering a rate design adjustment. There's two different ways that we looked at to do that. One would be what's called limited use billing demand in the medium commercial customer class. And the other one is medium commercial rate class change. For example, a 25 kVA to a 40 kVA change in the threshold that you need to hit. The second option is the existing electric utility bylaw with supplementary enhancements. And the last one is the possibility of council directing municipal support to specific identified customers. So we've just picked some quick reference points. So for example, we used on the option 1A, we used an 18% load factor customer. It basically exchanges a demand rate for a flat consumption rate that would be equivalent to either that 18% or a 27% demand billing rate. The impact in the option A is 26 accounts would see a savings of approximately $585 per year. The cost to fund that would be about $15,000 or a potential under recovery of $15,000. In option 1AB, it would be, if you set the load factor at 27%, you would have about 83 accounts that would be impacted, which would each see about a $460 saving per year for a total cost of $100,000. On the right is a rate class change. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, this would potentially change it to less than 5,000 kilowatts per month and a demand of less than 40 kVA. The medium commercial rate class to be revised to potentially over 40 kVA for the medium commercial class. This would impact 37 accounts, saving each of those accounts $2,400 per year, but offering rate changes to the remaining 3,500 other accounts, which would see increases to offset this cost. Option 2 is the existing utility rate with supplementary enhancements. So as I mentioned, we have implemented website enhancements explaining rate class, demand, consumption, and billing impacts. We formalized the procedure for rate reclassification, improving reclassification awareness through contractors in the permitting process, and then supplementary customer assistance regarding data interpretation and billing inquiries. We'll further explore increased communications and educational tools, enhanced demand KVA data support through BizConnect, and evaluation of providing other demand-side management tools for the customers. Medicine Hat's rate reclassification process and grace period is materially more generous than the other industry standards. And option 3, this is pretty plain in this presentation, would have to be explored further, but essentially council could seek to offer financial aid to businesses for socioeconomic purposes, and this would be funded through municipality financial tool if it's the preferred method. So some outstanding council motions, August 18th and September 29th, 2025. Some more detail on these. This was the review of demand meters and demand range. The recommendation from this motion is that the supplementary information provided within this April 7th material, plus additional analysis provided in the February 18th information brief, satisfy council's outstanding questions or concerns. And in regards to the September 29th motion, this was alter medium commercial rate class to require demand to be exceeded for a minimum of 4 consecutive months. Industry practice is clear that demand at any point is more important than consecutive nature of demand. The current motion permits seasonal demand rate reclassification, encourages gaming, and risks the utility under recovering. Therefore, we recommend not proceeding with this motion. So the recommendation, as Councillor Clugston had mentioned, approve option 2, existing electric utility rate design with supplementary enhancements, and close the council motions from August 18th and September 29th. I'll take any questions.
Director Tuksher, that presentation was excellent. Thank you very much. Any speakers? Councillor Mohammed?
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. So when I look at your third option, is it assuming that the what do you call it? We're going to maintain status quo, or let's say council approve that motion. What's going to happen?
I think they're all separate solutions. So I think, sorry, just give me 1 second. I think if you would choose option 3, you wouldn't choose option 1 or 2. It would be one of the options. Option 3 would be pursued if an issue exists, but that issue wouldn't be satisfactory to do it through rate making principles. So you could provide this outside of the rate making as a potential solution.
The rate making would continue the way it is?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
Sorry.
okay, which is what you're suggesting.
Yeah. But, yeah.
He's suggesting option 2.
Yeah, which is what it is right
Yeah.
now. Yeah, okay.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. We're not asking questions at this point, that we're speaking to the motion?
You can do either. The motion is on the table, but since Director Tuksher
Well, I'm
is here.
speaking to the motion on the table. I will not be supporting it. I appreciate the work that's gone into this, and I appreciate the diligent attention that council has paid to this issue. It's like the iceberg. The public will see the tip, but the hours that we've spent on this, discussing it, trying to understand it, and come up with what we could agree on, has been mammoth. Having said that, I reluctantly but confidently indicate that I would prefer to see option. Well, sorry. Before I go to the options, I appreciate the common claims and misconceptions. I accept those analyses, except for the second one, that the range of demand in the medium commercial rate class, 25 kVA to 2,000 kVA, is too broad. I think it is significantly too broad, and I would like to see that changed to 40 kVA. I appreciate that none of these answers are totally satisfactory, that if the department's analysis of this matter was to proceed, they'd have all of us on a demand billing system, but the logistics of getting that kind of metering into every consumer's home or business is unrealistic. However, I do submit that this KVA, this rate class, is too broad, and I would like to see it changed, and I would as well offer those who were affected, and I think we identified 7 customers that were impacted with that 25 kVA being the bottom line, and I would like to see them compensated. There is great difficulty in doing that. I concur that it should not come out of the utility. But I do believe that this city-owned utility has cost some of our customers a significant amount of money that they weren't prepared for, that they didn't fully understand the transition that was being proposed. And I would like to see them each compensated. I think it's token, but sometimes a token is better than nothing. And I would suggest that they should each be compensated. And this is an approximate kind of out of the back of my brain, but I would suggest $2,000 per customer for the last period of billing where they were forced into this higher classification. So those are my observations and my reasoning for not supporting the recommendation that's before before council at this point. And I'm not anticipating, well, I don't know. If there's support for that, I would propose an amendment or a defeat of this resolution and a passage of a different recommendation. But I'll wait to hear what the rest of council has to say on that. If I'm a lone dog barking at my shadow in the back alley, then so be it. But those are my thoughts on the matter, and I very strongly urge your consideration of those two possible scenarios. Change the rate classification to 40 kVA to 2,000 and offer some compensation to those who were significantly affected, small businesses that bore significant increases that they really weren't anticipating.
Councillor Hellman?
Thank you, through the chair. I just say to that last point by Councillor Cox there, if the range from 25 to 2,000 is too broad, 90% of the medium commercial customers are under 150. So if that range needs to be changed, maybe it's on the other end. Yeah, maybe it needs to get smaller from the top down. So when I look at this, and I don't disagree with Councillor Cox either on perhaps there's potential for some level of compensation for some of the ratepayers early on that were stuck with this and didn't have the opportunity to adjust. They were surprised by it, but I don't think that's the case anymore because we've made some changes there. Looking at this and learning about it, I do see there are offsets. There are counters to adjusting for one customer impacts. In some cases, it looks like 100 other ones. So to come down some for one is to go up for many. So that's a challenge. One of the biggest things for me, though, was the period, having no grace period. So just having the sticker shock of went from 1 month to the next into a new category and then being classified there for a whole 12 months, regardless of what your usage was. Those following months, you're in the penalty box essentially for a whole year, and you have no ability to lower yourself out of that new category. So I am comfortable with the changes that we have made that allow for that 3-month grace period where a warning is issued, it's explained, you have opportunity to sort of make adjustments within your business to get yourself below the 25 kVA. I think that's fair and reasonable. And I think most of the people or most of the businesses that are maybe challenged with this to date have had that opportunity. So I don't see a need to compensate them necessarily, but perhaps some of the ones early on in this, I think. And then the last point I would make, though, and this was part of the presentation, but I brought it up before, so I'll bring it up again, is we definitely need to look at changing the classifications of these from small commercial, medium commercial, and large commercial, because it's not a reflection of the business size at all. They need to be some kind of terminology that reflects the KVA class and not gives people the impression it has to do with the number of employees or square footage of their business or anything like that. Thank you.
I know you didn't mean it like this, but I just wanted to address penalty. It is not a penalty, but it might feel like that, yes. Penalty box, but you were using an analogy. I just wanted to clarify. Okay, Councillor Young.
Thank you for this. I have spent more time on this issue than any single issue in the city. I think we've had a lot of people who spent a lot of time on this. it's actually, it's mind-blowing how much time we have spent on utility rates for a small group of people. That's not to say it's not important. It's truly mind-blowing. The question I have is going back to Councillor Cox. I can appreciate that. I actually think that, to be fair, with respect, that's the easy road to take here. It's nice to sit here and say, oh, well, yeah, we've overcharged them and let's give them a bunch of money. But the reality is I don't want to make an emotional decision. I want to make a decision that's based on facts. And I know I'm going to ruffle feathers. I already know what the Facebook comments are going to be tomorrow. It is what it is. But the reality is there is information, and there's also information that we have. There's information in the community, and then there's information that we have in committee because we're a part of this city. Let's talk about giving these people their money back. First of all, there's no penalty. Not a single person has been charged a penalty. They have been charged for their usage. I understand it's a shock. I understand what rate shock is. When you go from small commercial and you're not paying your share, you're not paying for demand, then you go to medium and all of a sudden you're paying your fair share, your demand. Yeah, that sucks. That's tough. That's a lot of money. But we're not penalizing anyone. We're charging them for their usage. So talking about let's give these people their money back. Where would that money come from? So if we look at the two options that we have, one of the options is municipal. We're going to give these people their money. Where does that money come from? Taxpayers. We got to go and we got to say we need more money because there's people who use too much energy, and it's not their fault. I don't fault them 1 second for what they used. But the reality is we're going, taxpayers, you need to cover these people who use too much energy and are upset about it. Okay, well, how does that work to the taxpayer? The other option, moving it to 40 kVA. Travis, can you explain to us what happens when we move this to 40 kVA? Because there's this narrative out there that says, oh, well, it's just at 25 and let's just move it up to 40. What happens when we move it to 40 kVA, Travis?
I'll go back to my point. It would impact about 3,500 customers that would see approximately a 3% increase for those 3,500 customers.
Okay, so let's just talk about that. So you're okay, Councillor Cox, going to 3,400 people and saying, hey, for these 60 people, they're saving $2,400 a year. That's great. To those 3,400 people, you're okay to say your bill's increasing by 5 to 10%. We talk about fairness. We talk about equity. Where is the equity in that? Where is the fairness in that? I understand I'm going to get skewered for this and I'm going to be anti-small business and all that. I get it. But the reality is I'm not an apologist for a utility. I've spent a ton of time on this. I've looked at the data. This sucks. It sucks if you're one of these people. It sucks if you're one of these 7 people. It absolutely sucks. But the answer creates more problems. If we move to 40 kVA, what happens? Now we just got 7 other people who are at 40 kVA who are going to be mad. So at the end of the day, the solution does not help. I don't believe in taking taxpayer money to do this. I don't believe in raising rates for 3,400 people so that these people can get a bit of a, get a lighter bill. I know that sounds harsh. I get it. I'm sorry. I'm happy to put this one to bed.
Councillor Mohammed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate all the comments and all the work that has been done. I mean, I'm not on the Energy Committee. I've spent more time in the last couple of days analyzing, looking at numbers and trying to find information that I don't have, but I appreciate all the work that you've done. I understand that it's a huge amount of work to do rate reclassification. That said, I appreciate, Councillor Hellman and Cox's comment around people who experience early shock. If there is an opportunity to support them so they're not feeling that burden. At the end of the day, there are 7 businesses or however many you identify that are in our community that they're trying to do their best to advance the economic landscape in our community. I don't like the sound of the narrative that there's nothing we can do about it. It just seems to me like it sucks for you because there are more people on the other side than on this end. I'd appreciate seeing some due diligence that says that we are actually looking at those few people and try and see how we can improve our system to support them. I don't know how we're gonna do it, but that doesn't, I mean, like, the language and continuous improvement is missing for me in that narrative. I'm not content with that. I am gonna support them. I don't know, we're talking about supporting motion as well, or we just, I'm okay to support the motion because I understand the complex work that goes into reclassification. I have one more question, but my concern is overlooking, like, I just don't feel like there's enough statement in our comments and material of what has been done. I know we're working with them to help them to minimize the what do you call it, the load, the impact in the system. But yeah, anyway, you wanted to respond to that. And then I have one more question.
And can we get the slide on the steps that have been taken since the inception of, or since the city became aware of this issue? Thank you. Go ahead, Director Tuchscherer.
Yeah, just in response, I really think it comes down to cost causation on the system and the customers and fairness and equity on the system. Our analysis is how do we fairly allocate customers who cause cost on our system and allocate that cost to the customer who does that. Yeah. And that's what we have done analysis on, and we think that that is done appropriately, and demand is the appropriate way to allocate costs and to recover costs from our customers. So it's not that we can't do nothing, we just feel this is the fairest method to do it.
Yeah, thank you. And I realized that, a lot of more communication after we discover some of that shocked some of those people and they complain about it. So anyway, thank you for that, and I want to, echo Councillor Hellman's comment on the grace period that you're giving. That was a big deal for me, and I noticed that. One question, so of the few that we have that have gone over that threshold of 25 kVA, what number are they? And are there, is there a cluster of people within that range? So how many, just give me an example. I'm not saying you don't have to tell me who they are, but is it 27 kVA? Is it 30? Is it 35?
It's a difficult question to answer. We have lots, like I said previously in the presentation, we have lots of customers at the 25, 26 range that if they're a load factor of 33%, moving to demand-based billing is actually better for them. So it's hard to say a customer, you can't just identify a customer at 25, 27 kVA, because some are better off, some are worse off. It's really the customers that are low load factor that are right around the 25 kVA that will make the argument that they're better off in small commercial where they're being cross-subsidized by other customers.
Okay. One last question, and I'll be done. So have we, I know we are looking at 25 to 2,000 as a really broad range. Have we looked at, for example, 25 to 35?
Well, I
just
think,
within a short to see how many people fall under that?
Yeah, I think I have a chart at the end, if I can find it real quick. This is going to be tough to read, but this really shows the histogram of our customers, and really it shows how many customers are on the bottom. The first column is 0 to 40. The second column is 40 to 79. And then the third column is 79 to 119. And the fourth column is 119 to 150. So really you're talking about a tail of customers that really makes that customer class look like the range is really wide. As you can see, the range of that customer class is really narrow on that lower end between 25 and 150. We could essentially try and make a customer class for that tail, which would be not necessarily moving to 40, but maybe it would be 25 to say 150 and then 150 to 1,000 to cover that tail of customers. But then it gets to an administrative process and trying to administer another customer class and assign costs and to do that, where we felt it was administratively more efficient just to have one customer class that looks large but really is a narrower class that has similar consumption habits or usage patterns.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Cox, because you have already spoken, I'm going to go to Councillor Reinish and Councillor Pfaff first. Councillor Reinish?
Thank you very much through the chair. I just basically want to thank you for all the work that you've done, and to everybody on council who's done a lot of work on this. Certainly a lot more people than I have. I've been involved with this story in my previous incarnation, so I'm very, very, very familiar with it. And the reality of it is there's no perfect system that's optimal for every customer in Medicine Hat. The needs of the many will sometimes outweigh the needs of the few or even the one. So I would just like to say thank you for the work and the efforts that you and your committee and your group have put into this. And while the people are online attacking Stu tomorrow, his heart's in the right place. There's no necessarily need to take from one person to give to the other. Sometimes a business needs to be responsible for their own business.
Councillor Pfaff.
So, how long has the city been talking about this? Like, when did this idea first get brought up to the city?
The rate classifications
Correct.
or the particular issue we're dealing with now?
I didn't realize there was a difference.
Go ahead.
I don't know the exact.
Like,
You can't speak during the council meeting, please. So the rate review, or the rate classification system was?
It was in the summer of about 2 years or a year and a half, somewhere in there.
Okay.
And that's when we did the jurisdiction review and the review of our rate making philosophy and models.
Okay, so since this has been brought to council's attention, and then staff has been looking at doing the work that was presented tonight over that time, from when we started till now, in my mind, one of the biggest differences is the 3-month grace period. Could you explain that a little more, like what it was initially and then what the 3-month grace period means exactly?
Yeah, we always had an informal process where our customer support would, if they seen a customer go above that threshold, potentially they would notify the customer. Sometimes it got missed and the customer would have been flagged and not necessarily notified or communicated with. And then in 3 months, if they continued above that usage after the 3 months, they would have been pushed up. Now we formalize the process to be clear communication. When a customer does hit that threshold, they are sent a letter with their bill, and they're given 2 months after that to correct, or they could either try to come below that threshold or more efficiently use that power to create more. If you can create revenue by using more power, that's an option as well, and staying above the threshold and being able to earn more revenue off using that power. So it kind of gives the customer some options to determine which direction they would want to go.
So basically, a customer has to sustain above 25 kVA for 3 months for the rate to be set at that higher level for the subsequent year. Is that correct?
Sorry, good question. Those 3 months are just a grace period, so it doesn't matter what they hit in those 3 months. They've been notified that in those 3 months they've been over. If in the 4th month they go over, that's when they'll be reclassified. So
Right.
they can
Okay,
go over in
so-
those 3 months and still not be reclassified. It's the 4th month, if they continue over, then they're reclassified.
And then if in the 4th month they don't go over, then they stay in that lower small business or whatever it's called,
Yeah,
the small category.
And I like that you're asking more questions, because to even expand a little bit further, anytime in the next 12 months after they've had a grace period,
Yeah, that was
if
my
they
next
go over 25, then they're moved up.
Gotcha. So
If
you have
you-
a 3-month time frame, and then for the next year, you don't have any more warnings, essentially.
You don't move
You have
up.
to stay lower than 25 kVA for the next 12 months.
And if you stay lower for 12 months, and then you go over, then you get another 3-month grace period.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. So I think that's extremely important that is, that customers are made aware of that as soon as it happens, right? Because I also have a business, so, I want to be able to have control over my costs. And I think this at least allows some choice in the matter.
Yep.
Whether or not it's the correct choice or whether whether you agree with the classification, at least it's not surprise from day one, yeah. I think that's a very important thing that we need to, I think that's a good improvement that was made to the system since it started, but businesses are very aware when the costs will actually start to happen, and that they can make choices to mitigate that happening to them.
And there's more resources on our webpage to really explain exactly what it means and the implications and how to manage that.
So, and then I have a follow-up is, and you may or may not know the answer to this, but since you implemented the more fulsome warning system, I guess, have you noticed that businesses have used this? Has this impacted how, has it helped, I guess, is basically my question to businesses?
I do have that number somewhere. I think there was about 4 or 5 reclassifications in 2025, so a pretty low number. It's hard to say, you know, how the grace period has affected them, because obviously they get the notice and then they're free to kind of make their own decisions from that. So it's really hard to say, but I think it was low single digits that was reclassified in 2025.
As opposed to the prior year, which
And
potentially.
I don't have that number.
That's okay, no big deal. Cool, okay, and I just wanted to point out one other thing, and then I'll shut up. On page 15 or 365 of your proposal, I just wanted to, I guess, clarify or reiterate here that it says that the monthly electric utility costs for a low load factor customer, and you've got the graph there, and then you've got the average load factor customer, you've got another graph. So in both these instances, we're still, Medicine Hat, so in the second instance, where Medicine Hat is by far the lowest compared to, say, Lethbridge or Red Deer, and then in the first instance with the low load factor, we're sort of in the middle. So I guess I just wanted to point out that, like, our rates, or this system doesn't seem like outside of the range of normal, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're very competitive across the board. Red Deer might be one of the few that would be more competitive in the low load factor scenario. In the medium to high load factors, we are likely the most competitive distribution company.
And the high load factor is what, essentially, we're talking about with the.
I would think anything over a 32% load factor, you would be more beneficial to be moved into the medium commercial demand billing, and like, so that would put you more competitive than other municipalities in Alberta.
Perfect. Okay, so in summation, essentially we have a pie and we have to chop it up one way or the other, and it's tough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councillor Cox.
Thank you. I just want to address a couple of points that have been made here. One, the amount of compensation which I'm suggesting should come from the municipal side. I don't really know why it needs to come from that side as opposed to the tax side. The tax side as opposed to the utility side, but I don't think it's a great number. We were being advised that there were basically about 7 customers that were impacted at this very low range of 25 kVA. And so, I mean, we debated earlier this afternoon, today, dipping into municipal reserves to fund a budget addition of $14,000 to do some planning on a trail. So 7 times $2,000, as I said, I think it's token, but I think there's room on either side of this operation for us to find that kind of compensation that, no, it's not perfect. Some of these customers have been hit much harder than that, but it's at least a way of the City of Medicine Hat saying, we run this utility, we run it for the benefit of all of our citizens, personal, corporate, commercial, and when we make decisions that have significant impact on our businesses, we're prepared to look at that and offer you compensation. As for where you put the KVA marker, I'm suggesting 40. Mr. Tusher's suggesting if you wanted to raise it, really you should raise it to 150. We never really got into that discussion at any point. It was kind of do something or do nothing. And so I still think that rate classification class is far too broad. And, you know, we don't talk about specifics, but I'm going to talk about specifics. The top end of that class, 2,000, you've got greenhouses. And at the bottom end, you've got some of our customers who are downtown business people, operating small operations with a few employees, and that they're at the 25 end. So that's the rate classification that we've got on our hands. And I think it's far too broad. Where do you draw the line? That's a discussion I'd like to have had, but the discussion seemed to be more about, are we drawing a line or are we leaving it where it is? And I just want to point out that we all received a communication this morning from Mike Reed, who is a downtown business person, who is urging us to take a close look at this and to make some adjustments. He purports to speak on behalf of small businesses in the downtown area. I know he doesn't have a formal process for calling himself that, but I think he is a diligent, trustworthy business operator in the downtown core. He's tried to gather opinions and information with regard to this matter, and he's certainly also a candidate in the last election. So he's paying attention to the issues. I think we have an issue here, and I feel we have not addressed it.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, and I can appreciate that, Councillor Cox. Again, the narrative is very strong, and we want to help. To your point there, with respect, we have taken a very close look at this. This isn't some willy-nilly decision that we're just like, oh, this is too difficult, let's just punt it because we don't like it. The amount of time that city employees have spent on this, the amount of time that the Energy Committee has spent on this is huge. We have looked at this with a fine-tooth comb. We've looked at all the data. We've looked at the data that the public doesn't have. Like we have information behind this. So we're coming to this decision precisely because we have the information. The range is too big. Okay, well, if the range is too big, well, then cut it off at the top. Because if the range is too big from 25 to 2,000 and 90% of our customers are in 150 to 25, well, then maybe let's cut it off at 500. The answer isn't to cut it off at 25. The answer is to cut it off where it's too broad. And then going back to, let's pay these people. Yeah, 15 grand is nothing. This year, you didn't solve anything. You just gave them 15,000. And then next year, you give another people 15,000. Well, Bill, like actually that's how it works because you don't solve the problem. You just say, here's some money. So again, beating a dead horse, but I think it's appropriate. I'm not questioning anyone's intelligence or anything like that. I'm just saying I don't think that that's the appropriate response to this.
If I may, also just a reminder to address council generally rather than an individual. Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you, through the chair. And just to offer some clarification, last May, staff did, in response to a question from council, provide analysis that indicated if we changed the split to 50 kVA level, and I believe that some of the numbers that Councillor Young had been referencing, where there was a certain portion that had 60% savings, and then I think it was something around the range of 2,400 people had a 5 to 10% increase in rates. And similar, as part of this work, we did look at rate design changes, and I believe
Slide 18, I think.
What you're referencing is on page 368 of the package. There is a proposal that council could consider for a rate class change as 1B that I believe Councillor Cox reflects your suggestion for a split at 40 kVA. So that the work is there and available for council's consideration as one of the options.
Councillor Pfaff.
I was just going to call the question. I think we've done it.
The motion was made by Councillor Clugston, and it is to approve option 2, existing electric utility rate design with supplementary enhancements, which have been outlined, and closes the motions listed in the package that were previously made by council. So we will vote. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
In favor.
And that passes. You voted no. Next item.
Mayor
Mayor-
Clark, if I may, just before Director Tuchar
Oh, yes,
I was just gonna
please. Yes,
say
yes,
that,
yes.
actually.
Don't leave us yet.
I was trying to push, Mayor Clark, I was just actually trying to push my speaker button for this. Yeah, Travis, or
Yeah.
Mr. Tuchar.
Go ahead.
So just I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't, but just to Councillor Young's point about spending so much time on this last issue between council members, you can multiply it probably by 10 to 100 for what the staff have, and previous council. And unfortunately, and I'm going to say it, unfortunately, we are losing Mr. Tuchar to the private sector, which congratulations to the private sector for taking such a, I'm going to say 20 years almost, 16, with this organization. And a lot of the previous debate was about economic development, small businesses. At any given time, when we have a new business coming to this community, almost one of the first questions they ask a bigger business is electricity, gas, land, taxes, and whose desk did it end up on? But Travis's. And it's going to be a huge loss. And I've heard a number floated out to even right now on the side of his desk, there's $1 billion worth of possible economic development in different companies looking at coming to this community. And as Councillor Young was alluding to, that we've spent all this time on this one issue, and now we've lost a great employee. So I wish you the best.
Thank you very much.
And it's too bad. Thank you.
Thanks.
No, not yet. Managing Director Pancoast.
Thank you, and I simply was going to recognize Director Tuchar. Travis, thank you for your contributions. He has been here almost 16 years, and to Councillor Clugston's point, he has offered tremendous value into this community and into our organization, and he will be missed.
Thank you.
Sincerely, deepest gratitude for all the work that you've done. You are an exceptional person and employee. So best of luck to you, and congratulations to your new employer.
Thanks very much. I enjoyed my time, and we'll see what the next couple of years hold.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next item is a bylaw for first reading only, bylaw 4873, 2026, rezoning 201 Second Street Northwest. So again, for first reading only, council the motion is that council give first reading to bylaw 4873-2026, an application to rezone 201 Second Street Northwest, the former Riverside School site, from direct control district to low density residential district.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
As it is for first reading, we will not be debating it, and we will now vote on the motion.
In favor?
Okay, thank you. And that is passed. The next bylaw, again, for first reading only, bylaw 4875, 2026, rezoning 800 Gershaw Drive Southwest. So the motion is to give first reading to bylaw 4875, 2026, an application to rezone 800 Gershaw Drive Southwest from mixed use district to highway commercial district.
So moved.
Second.
And we'll vote on first reading.
Favor?
Thank you, Councillor Varga. That passes. Next up, again, first reading only. The motion is that council give first reading to bylaw 4877-2026, an application to rezone 2 and 4 Ranchero Place Northeast from low-density residential. I missed one, but I'll go back, sorry. Low-density residential district to medium-density residential district.
Moved, so moved.
Seconded.
Thank you. We'll vote on first reading.
Favor.
Thank you.
I've got a question, I'm losing track here.
I missed that 11.7. I'll go do it now. Is that what you're?
Well, we're not following the order in the printed agenda, so
Yeah,
I'm just
so I
wondering where.
missed 11.7.
6.
11.6, I apologize. And so now I'll go back and get that one.
Thank you.
And I didn't do this one. So the motion on this one is that council gives first reading to bylaw 4876, 2026, an application to rezone 2 and 6 Sierra Green Southwest from medium-density residential district to low-density residential district.
So move.
Thank you, Councillor Hellman.
Seconded.
Thank you. We'll vote on the motion, or first reading.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Varga. We are now at 11.8. This is for first reading. It is the tax and supplementary property tax rate bylaw. There is a presentation. We have 25 minutes, and this is just for first reading. Do we want to get the motion? Well, I guess we'll have the presentation first. Thank you. Go ahead, Managing Director Barta.
I don't know, we've missed something, haven't we?
Just hold on a second. Do you have a point of order? Your microphone is on.
I'm sorry. I thought we'd, we gave first, how come the bylaw numbers, I'm sorry, what am I following here? 4875226, then this is 11.6, we did that. Did we do 11.7?
Yes, I accidentally did that one before I did 11.6.
So now we're on to
11.8.
11.8, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Managing Director Barta.
Thank you. And good evening, Your Worship and members of council. So tonight I will walk through how property taxes work, the principles we use to set tax rates, some of the reasons why taxes increase, and then review the 2026 tax rate scenarios and recommendations. So I just want to touch on some property tax fundamentals. Property taxes are the city's main and most stable revenue source. They fund the program, services, and infrastructure our residents rely on every day. Setting tax rates requires judgment. We must balance fairness, affordability, and alignment with our long-term strategic vision. And we also monitor how tax burden is shared across the property tax classes. Currently, single family carries the largest share at 60%. Assessment does not determine how much tax we collect. It simply determines how the tax revenue is distributed amongst property owners. Our goal is to always find the right balance between community service expectations and the taxes needed to support them. So let's just take a look at some principles and guidelines. Setting tax rates is a three-step process. Council has approved the 2026 tax revenue budget. The assessor has determined the 2026 assessment values, and we are at the last step. We are utilizing the tax framework to set the tax rates. The 2026 approved property tax revenue budget is $99.88 million. The chart shows where the tax dollars go, and this is based on a median home value of $359,500 and an annual municipal tax amount of $2,451. So the top areas are community safety, which include police and fire, as well as parks and rec, and that would include maintaining our parks, our trails, irrigation costs, playgrounds, tennis, pickleball courts, rec facilities, and so on. Under infrastructure and airport, infrastructure is related to municipal infrastructure. So that would be maintaining our roads, sidewalks, bridges, snow removal, sanding, and sweeping our streets and so on. When setting tax rates, the primary focus is to mitigate the impact to property owners. We want to reduce the volatility and avoid large year-over-year tax shifts for any one property tax class. We want to ensure that the distribution of taxes are fair, equitable, that they're predictable and stable, and comparable and transparent. So we run a number of scenarios and that take into account the market value changes and the assessment growth changes to analyze the impact to the tax revenue distribution, the tax ratios, and the tax rate increases. And we will go through a number of different scenarios later in the presentation. So first, I would like to go through a few of the reasons why property taxes increase. One reason is the decline in the provincial and federal funding over the past several years, which continues to have an impact on our budget. As grants and transfers that support both operating and capital needs are reduced, more of the financial responsibility shifts to the municipality. The province also retains a significant share of traffic fine revenue, which has traditionally helped offset municipal costs. As these funding sources decline, the city becomes more dependent on property taxes to maintain essential services and keep service levels steady. So in other words, when external funding decreases, a large portion of our costs must be supported by our taxpayers. Another reason for the increase in the rising costs of operating is the rising cost of operating the city. We continue to look for ways to reduce expenses wherever we can. In the past, this included initiatives like the Financially Fit program, and more recently, the $2 million efficiency reduction target as part of our 2026 budget. Even with these efforts, broader economic conditions are affecting our costs in ways that are difficult to avoid. Inflation remains a significant challenge. Just like households and businesses, the city is experiencing substantial increases in the cost of goods, services, equipment, fuel, and salaries. These rising costs make it more expensive to provide the same level of service residents rely on. So for example, the cost of purchasing a new fire truck has risen by 84%. And construction materials such as pipes, concretes, and road supplies have also escalated. We also continue to navigate the long-standing challenge of fluctuating electricity and natural gas prices. When commodity markets shift, so do the contributions from our energy business units. This unpredictability means that there's less stable revenue available to help offset operating costs. Budget decisions from previous years also create pressures. When increased operating costs are temporarily funded through reserves or other one-time measures, it can lead to future tax increases unless a more reliable funding source is found. These factors mean that the cost of running the city continues to rise, and unpredictable revenue sources make it harder to offset those pressures. This combination contributes to the upward pressure on municipal property taxes. This slide helps explain why we are seeing some continued upward movement in municipal property taxes. Over time, the city's traditional revenue sources have not been growing at the same pace as the cost required to operate our community. The cost of providing services has gradually increased due to inflation, aging infrastructure, regulatory requirements, and changing community needs. As these pressures build, it becomes more challenging for existing revenues to keep up. When property tax revenues grow more slowly than our day-to-day costs, it can create a financial strain in future years. This often means that to stay financially balanced, adjustments may need to be made later, and those adjustments can be larger if they are postponed. The period of tax freezes from 2020 to 2022 also play a role. Council made those decisions thoughtfully to support residents and businesses during the uncertainty of COVID. However, the freezes created a cumulative shortfall of about $7.5 million, which means that our tax base today is smaller than it otherwise would have been. We are continuing to gradually rebuild that base over time. To help smooth the transition, we have used reserves to cover some of the shortfall. While this has been helpful in the short term, reserves are best used for one-time needs rather than ongoing operations. Relying on them reduces investment income and limits what we can set aside for future infrastructure and capital projects. Looking ahead, without stable revenue sources or gradual predictable property tax increases, the city will face increasing budget challenges. So smaller, consistent increases are more sustainable and help avoid larger adjustments in future years. The chart on the left also shows that our current tax rates are gradually returning to levels that are more in line with historical patterns. Budget amendments are sometimes necessary, and they often reflect important priorities or unexpected needs. It's also important to recognize how these decisions influence future budgets and the tax adjustments required to support them. In 2025, Council approved several amendments that were funded by reserves. While these amendments were important and necessary, they now have an impact on the municipal tax requirement. Altogether, both operating and capital amendments created a tax impact of 2.11%. Without making a corresponding tax adjustment, this pressure continues to be carried by our reserves. Using reserves can help smooth short-term pressures, but it isn't a sustainable long-term solution. Decisions made in prior years, especially those funded through reserves, can carry forward and gradually add pressure to future tax rates. Understanding these impacts help ensure that we make thoughtful, balanced decisions that support current needs and a long-term financial stability. We are currently working through a financial challenge that affects our whole community, a gap in the municipal budget. Even after accounting for all of our revenue sources, including property taxes, other municipal revenue, and investment income, there remains a shortfall that we need to address together. As the chart shows, we've already taken many steps to reduce this gap through a range of initiatives. These efforts reflect our commitment to being responsible stewards of community resources. However, the gap persists because our revenues aren't growing quickly enough to keep pace with the rising cost of providing services our community relies on every day. Inflation continues to increase the cost of goods, services, equipment, fuel, and salaries, which puts added pressure on our budget. While our revenue sources do grow over time, they are not increasing at the same rate as our costs. This has meant relying more heavily on energy dividends to help close the difference, which is not something that we want to depend on long term. The city is required to balance its budget, and we are not allowed to run a deficit. So using reserves can help in the short term, but it's not something that we can depend on indefinitely. Moving forward, we need to consider two main paths. Each come with choices that affect our community. Reducing costs, which may require adjusting or scaling back some services, or increasing revenues, which most often comes through changes to municipal property taxes. While the dividend contributions from our energy operations have been strong in recent years, we anticipate these levels will gradually return to more typical patterns moving forward. The high contributions that we saw from 2021 to 2023 were exceptional, largely influenced by unusually high electric commodity prices. As market forecasts suggest, these prices will normalize, and we expect contributions from our energy business units to adjust accordingly. Even with this shift, we are well positioned to plan thoughtfully for the future. Understanding these trends early allow us to make proactive, strategic decisions that protect our long-term financial stability. Even though future contributions are forecasted to decline and may not match the unusually high levels of recent years, this insight gives us the opportunity to strengthen our financial resilience and ensure levels of withdrawals are managed accordingly. As our energy revenues return to more typical levels, maintaining healthy reserves and using them intentionally will be key to supporting our operations and preserving flexibility. With careful planning and prudent financial management, we can continue to build stable and sustainable path forward. So just to highlight the chart on the screen here, this shows the profit center contributions. So the blue bar is energy, which is our commodity business units. The orange bar is the rate-based, which is our distribution business units, and the green bar is our land profit center. So the way that the dividend has been, contributions were calculated have changed over time. In the early years, it was a fixed dividend. It then changed to a fixed and variable dividend. We then moved to a distributable cash model, and finally, we've moved to now a free cash flow model. And this is where any excess cash after paying for our operating expenses, our capital funded through our operations, and any debt payments. So once those are all taken care of, then any excess cash would be transferred to the reserves. The chart shows that the contributions are forecasted to be lower due to lower forecasted commodity prices and larger capital requirements in the future. So the forecast going forward is that more cash would be retained in the business unit rather than being transferred to the reserves. So while it may appear that the city has significant funds in its reserves, it's important to recognize that these reserves play a vital role in preparing us for the future. We are fortunate to have healthy reserves today, and this strength is the result of thoughtful planning. The higher contributions from our energy business unit between 2021 and 2023 were used intentionally and strategically to reinforce our reserves, knowing that commodity prices naturally fluctuate and that these elevated revenues would not last forever. So you can see in 2024, we did create two new reserves, the Abandonment Obligation Reserve and the Energy Transition Reserve. And we also increased our Medicine Hat Endowment Fund Reserve through those additional profits or contributions from our energy business unit. This proactive approach helps ensure that we are well positioned for upcoming needs such as capital infrastructure projects and future abandonment obligations. As future energy contributions decline, thoughtful use of reserves continue to be important, allowing us to balance immediate needs with long-term stability. Reserves act as a financial cushion, providing stability during years when revenues fall short or unexpected costs arise. This stability is one of our greatest strengths, even though reserves are not intended to serve as a regular ongoing funding source for operations. Many of our reserves are dedicated to specific future commitments, which means they are carefully allocated to ensure important projects and long-term priorities can move forward with confidence. By continuing to grow our reserves, we not only strengthen our financial resilience, but also maintain valuable investment income that supports the city over time. This balanced, forward-looking approach helps protect our community and ensures we can meet future needs responsibly and sustainably. So before I review the different scenarios, I want to provide some information on education property taxes. The City of Medicine Hat is required to collect education tax on behalf of the province. This is shown as a separate line on the tax notice. The province determines the amount required and allocates this amount across all municipalities based on their prior year's total taxable property assessments. The provincial education tax requirement is increasing from 3.1 billion to 3.6 billion, an overall increase of 16% for Alberta municipalities across the province. For the City of Medicine Hat, the education tax levy is increasing by 2.6 million or 8.7%. So for the average single-family home assessed at $359,500, this would result in about an $82 increase. Again, this increase is outside of the city's control. However, it does contribute to the overall tax increase of the total tax bill. This slide shows the total amount of taxes that is collected in 2026. So the total is 133.7 million. The city's 2026 approved budget allows us to collect 99.88 million in municipal taxes. And as I mentioned, these funds go to support a full range of programs, services, and infrastructures relied on by our residents every day. 25% of that total tax levy would represent money that we are required to collect on behalf of other entities. So primarily the province for education, property taxes, and the Cypress View Foundation.
Before you go to scenarios, I apologize for interrupting. Can I get a motion to extend the time of council to 10:30?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We'll vote on that. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Mohammed is not present. Okay, that passes. Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, so now that you have the background information, let's take a look at the scenarios. We run multiple scenarios to find the best approach that balances fairness, stability, and long-term sustainability, while keeping impacts manageable for residents and businesses. So in scenario 1, this is where the tax distribution remains the same as prior year. Under this scenario, non-residential properties experience a greater tax impact due to the higher tax ratio of 2.49. Multifamily properties see a lower tax impact since their tax ratio decreases to 1.11. So in scenario 1, this shifts more of the tax burden to the non-residential tax class. I also want to note, just to familiarize you with the charts that are on the screen. So the purple highlighted area in the table shows the monthly impact of municipal tax increase. So in this example, single family would see an $11.44 monthly increase for their annual municipal tax increase of $137, and that's shown in the orange highlighted area of the table.
Can you do that one more time? Because they both say municipal, monthly versus annually.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
The purple is monthly, the orange is the yearly annual amount. In scenario 2, this is where the tax ratios remain the same as the prior year. So in this scenario, multifamily properties experience a greater tax impact while non-residential impact is lower. We also see single-family tax impact increase under this scenario. So this scenario shifts more of the burden towards single-family and multifamily property classes. Scenario 3 is where the municipal tax rate is the same for all classes at 6.1%. So in this scenario, both the multifamily and non-residential tax ratios increase. Multifamily goes to 1.15, non-residential goes to 2.47. This scenario does provide a better tax distribution between all classes, reducing extreme shifts. It is designed to balance impacts while keeping year-over-year changes more predictable. So in this scenario, single family would see a monthly impact of $11.83 for their annual municipal tax increase of $142. Scenario 4 is where we have the same total tax rate for all classes at 6.7%. So multifamily ratio increases to 1.16, non-residential to 2.49. This scenario also maintains better tax distribution across all classes. However, the tax ratios for both multifamily and non-residential are trending in the wrong direction. Scenario 5 is where the municipal tax rate is the same for all classes at 5.6%. Both multifamily non-residential ratios increase to 1.15 and 2.47. This does maintain a balanced distribution between classes. However, this scenario results in a $550,000 revenue shortfall, which would need to be funded from reserves. And that would mean that it would put pressure on future taxes to increase in order to realign with costs. So just to put this in perspective, last year, we kept tax rates at 5.6% and funded $520,000 from reserves. This reduced our tax revenue from $94.5 million to $94 million. So now the revenue increase from last year to this year has to increase by 6.1% to make up that difference. So now we're looking at revenue in the last year at $94,000, and now it's increasing to $99.88 in this budget. Scenario 6 is where we have kept the municipal tax rate the same for all classes at 4.5%. I do want to note there is an error on this table here. So for multifamily, in the orange box, we're showing municipal tax impact of $184. That is incorrect. It should actually be $353. And then the monthly tax impact would be $29.44 rather than $15.37. So if you can just please note that on this slide. So this scenario would result in a $1.5 million revenue shortfall, again, which would likely be funded from reserves. We did also include scenario 7, and this is where the municipal tax rate is the same for all classes at 1%. So multifamily and non-residential ratios increased to 1.15 and 2.47. This scenario would result in a $4.8 million revenue shortfall. And because of the significant reserve requirement, scenario 7 would have long-term sustainability implications. The next, this slide and the next slide is really just a consolidated view of the scenarios showing the shifts and revenue shortfalls. So each scenario has trade-offs between fairness, sustainability, and reserve reliance. And this slide just provides a summary of all of the scenarios, and it's just showing the municipal tax portion. As I mentioned before, the city does not have control over the education tax portion as that's allocated by the province. So just to quickly recap, scenario 1 shifts more of the tax burden to non-residential. Scenario 2 shifts more of the tax burden to single family and multifamily. Scenario 3 does have a more equal distribution across the tax classes. Scenario 4 is where the total tax rate is the same. This is also an equal distribution amongst the tax classes, but it does increase the tax ratios for both multifamily and non-residential. Scenario 5, this is keeping the tax rate at 5.6%, and this does result in a revenue shortfall of $550,000, and that would have to be funded in order to have a balanced budget. Scenario 6 is where the municipal tax rate is 4.5%. That would result in a $1.5 million shortfall. And scenario 7 is where municipal tax rate is 1%, and that would result in a $4.8 million shortfall. Also to note that council may consider any other scenario. This slide shows how the tax dollars are allocated based on scenario 3. So if we look at the first chart there for single family, based on a median assessed home value of $359,500, the total tax bill is $3,460, and that works out to a monthly amount of $18.77. The municipal portion is $2,451, and that works out to a monthly amount of $11.83. So we are recommending scenario 3 as the preferred option for establishing the 2026 municipal tax rates. Scenario 3 proposes a 6.1% municipal tax rate applied equally across all property tax classes. The reason why we are recommending this scenario is that we believe this provides a fair distribution of taxes across all tax classes. So each class receives the same municipal tax rate of 6.1%, which avoids disproportionate impacts to any single group. This scenario does not require any additional funding from city reserves to balance the budget. It continues to align tax revenue more closely with operating costs and supports the city's long-term fiscal sustainability. So scenario 3 strikes the best balance between fairness, predictability, and fiscal responsibility. We are also requesting council adopt the revised requisitions and considers giving first reading to the bylaw with second and third reading to follow on April 20th. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Can I just clarify, in the recommendation slide, you're asking us to do 3 things, but if we just pass the bylaw, aren't we also approving everything else? So we really just need to pass the bylaw?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much. Are there any questions for Managing Director Barta? No? Okay, so this is just here for first reading, so we won't debate it this evening. The motion is to give first reading to bylaw 4878, 2026, the 2026 property tax and supplementary property tax rate bylaw.
So moved.
Seconder?
Seconded.
All right, we will vote. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
No.
Okay. Okay, so Councillor Young, you had your name on the speakers list?
Well, I mean, if we don't speak to this, we are gonna look so stupid. I mean, I understand it's first reading, all this kind of stuff, but this is literally what everyone wants us to talk about.
Right.
So if we just leave this meeting and we don't talk about any of this, I mean.
It's just procedurally, you don't debate it on first reading, and we will have a robust discussion about it, and I believe that Councillor Hellman has a motion.
Yeah, I think we all have a very different opinions when it comes to this. I think the people should understand what those differing opinions are, and whatever, if we're not gonna do that until next time, then I guess we'll do it next time. But I think it's really silly that we're not having a conversation about this.
Councillor Hellman.
Thank you. I move that council directs administration to make amendments to bylaw 4878-2026 prior to second reading to reflect a tax rate of 4.9% with any revenue shortfall to be funded through municipal cost savings and reserves.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Cox?
I support this motion. I appreciate what Councillor Young is saying, and I don't think we want to leave this room without making it clear that through extensive presentations and debate which have occurred in closed council as we were contemplating what was coming forward, we do have different views on what's an appropriate increase. Some of us are hoping that 4.9% will find enough support to proceed. Some of us would want the 5.6%, which was predicted, or the 6.1%, which is recommended, and some would like the 1% or the 4.5%. But I'm hoping that that the 4.9% increase, obviously it requires a great deal of number crunching in order to prepare the amendments to the bylaw, but in any event, I'm hoping that we will be able to support that, and that the people of Medicine Hat will realize that we're trying to keep this increase as palatable as possible, but there are realities that have to be confronted, and they've been well outlined by Interim Managing Director Barta.
Okay. To be clear, we are not debating, we're just debating right now this motion that was put forward by Councillor Hellman, seconded by Councillor Reinish, to ask administration to bring back an amended bylaw with a 4.9% tax rate. Councillor Reinish.
Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. Thank you, Your Worship, through the chair. I just want to reiterate once again that the city administration is asking council to approve a 6.1% budget, and Councillor Hellman's motion is for us to lower that to 4.9%. So we are trying to find a way to get that down to 4.9% from 6.1, and I just want to reiterate that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table. I see no further speakers.
Mayor Clark, just one.
Oh, hi.
One item. Hi. Can you just add a tax rate increase of 4.9%?
You bet.
Thank you.
Is that okay with you, Councillor Hellman? Oh, Jesus. No? Okay, and Councillor Reinish?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. City Solicitor Bullock.
Just with regard to the amendment, I'm just looking at the procedure bylaw. It requires that the first reading occurs without amendment.
Which it did. So the first reading has already happened. Now, Councillor Hellman has made a motion for interim city manager Barta to bring back an amended version of the bylaw for second reading.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Let us, does that make sense? Okay, good. Okay, so thank you for double checking that, City Solicitor Bullock. And with that, we will vote on the motion. And Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes to that.
Thank
at this
you.
time.
That passes. Next item, again, for first reading only. We have bylaw 4879, 2026, tax penalties bylaw. Councillor Hellman?
Thank you. I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4879-2026, amending the tax penalties rate bylaw 3191, establishing the 2027 and 2028 tax penalty rates. 2027 penalty rate to increase to 15.5% from 15% for current and arrears taxes, and to 16% in 2028.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Varga. Since this is for first reading only, we will vote on first reading with no debate.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Varga. That passes. Item 11.10, bylaw 4880, 2026. Councillor Hellman?
Thank you. I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4880-2026, amending the tax certificate bylaw 3031, establishing the 2027 and 2028 rates as attached.
I'll second that.
Thank you. As this bylaw is for first reading only, we will vote without debate. Councillor Varga, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes. Finally, bylaw 4881, 2026, unpaid general accounts bylaw for first reading only.
I move that council gives first reading to bylaw 4881-2026, amending the unpaid general accounts bylaw 1981 to impose penalties if invoices remain unpaid after the due date shown on the invoice instead of 30 days from the date of the mailing of the invoice.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. As this bylaw is for first reading only, we will vote without debate.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Varga. And that also passes. With that, we have no further business, And this meeting is adjourned at 10:13 p.m.